we'll get started. Topic 1. A big issue during the American gay rights movement of the 1990s was the issue of outing gay individuals in the public spotlight. This controversy split the community. Is there a value in outing these individuals and normalizing the fact that gay people exist? Or is it irresponsible to out someone in a social climate where they could suffer violence and other ill outcomes? What about public homophobes? If they are caught secretly interacting with the gay community, is that an excuse to out them? All right. So yeah, I feel like there's lots of ways you can take this topic, right? It's an issue. I'm not sure if maybe you all can tell me, but I'm not sure if this is an issue strictly for the gay and lesbian community that they're tackling right this second, but we can actually bring this to a modern day, because there was something we had a conversation previously on the channel about surveillance, and that's what got me thinking about this. So I just want to talk about the concept in general, and then maybe try to move it to a few different directions. So we'll start with Sunny for introductions.
Well, in gosh, geez. Well, I don't know if I can think of really any reason that is a good reason to publicly out somebody. I don't think someone who is a homophobe who is secretly participating in uh, homosexual activities or what have you. I don't think that makes it any more warranted to out that person. I think that outing people, I think that someone's, choice to make known what their sexuality is, what their gender identity is, any of these things is their choice. It's their prerogative as to when that information should come out and to whom. I know a lot of harm has been done to people who have been unrightfully outed, at like very, very serious harm. So I don't, I struggle to think of a scenario where it, the harm that person's doing is somehow outweighed. Um, and I guess like the last thing that came to mind is that this was this was even an issue, I believe, in research, trying to collect statistics about gay men. I think specifically back like maybe in the 60s. It's something that they still teach in uh, research methods for sociology because of how the unethical implications of um, outing somebody unintentionally through your research. So, I mean, if it's unethical there, that's all I have.
Thanks so much. All right, Alice.
Here I am spacing out. I'm like, I'm not coming up next. Somebody else. So I was actually talking to my partner about this today, one of my partners. Because at first we both kind of agreed on like, no, you shouldn't out somebody because it's their choice, right? You shouldn't be outing celebrities. And then I brought up that one politician in Hungary, I think, who had a history of making like anti-gay like laws. Like that's what he was known for. Um, and we both were like, oh well, we could out him, right? We could out him. But then we kind of realized, well, even then, it's not really appropriate. Like then you're really just kind of like going after somebody for being gay. Just you're just one of the good gays, at that point. Like that's the so I think kind of we came to the conclusion that really there is no excuse to out somebody, who doesn't want to be outed, no matter what the situation is. You can't really do it and be consistent, right? You have to either out everybody or out nobody. Out only the people who want to be outed, or out everybody, even if they don't want to, regardless of what the situation is. So like I think it's more complicated obviously than that, but I don't think there's pretty much ever a situation where you should out somebody against their will. Even in the case of somebody like that Hungarian politician. Media jumped on it and it became a kind of this feeding frenzy in the media, but I don't think that was appropriate. Even if, internally we're like, well, it's retribution for being anti-gay. No, it's not. It's like there's other, ways that will come around. So
Thanks so much. Amanda's back with us. Did you you caught the topic or?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great, awesome. Yeah. So as I was reading into this, I learned in like 1992 or 93. There was a Secretary of Defense or a really well-known politician who was pretty much against homosexuality, and a journalist ended up outing him, which then made, I think it was Cheney at the time, pretty much come out in support of homosexuals and stuff, especially in regards to the military, and it changed policy. So as much as I am totally against outing people, um, there has been some good that's come from it. So it's really confusing.
Thank you. Josie?
Okay, so the idea of outing goes back far, earlier than the 90s. It started with the lavender scare. Oh, and Amanda Buckle from my chat says hello. I promised I would say that, so there it is for you. But anyways, it goes all the way back from the lavender scare and the red scare on how homosexuality was seen as sexual deviancy or sexual perversion was their words, and that if you were deemed that, then you were a spy or you were somebody who was at threat of leaking information. So there was a lot of blackmailing that happened on the idea of outing people. So there's a dark history around the idea of outing people that were just normal everyday people of being seen as like spies, like report your neighbor, like those they used to have those type of commercials, like telling people if you see something deviant, like tell the FBI. And so now we progress and we go into where we are now, and visibility is such a big thing, where it's okay to be visible, but yet we're still reaching those milestones. Like just recently with the NFL, you had the first openly gay active player in the NFL, which is like, it's 2021. How did none of those gay players in the past ever come out? Right? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, that's silly. It's like saying that softball girls aren't lesbians at some point, right? I'm just kidding. Not all of them. I'm just joking. But you know what I mean? But like the whole idea around like outing, and then if you take it even further into like where we are now in LGBTQ equality with transgender stuff, yes, I'm going to bring it up. Now people, if they get outed, they lose their jobs or they can be in serious danger, they can be harmed. Gay panic defense, like that is one of the things. Like if you out yourself as trans, even with somebody who's intimate, they could possibly kill you. Like, and some states and make that legal. So there's so much danger involved in the outing culture, and I think that's why it's so fundamentally important to let people's out stories be their own. Now, don't, like, we can encourage, like, I have a girlfriend of mine who's still closeted, and she's like, I'm gonna come out of my own time, come out of my time. It's like, girl, it's already been a year and a half, like it's time, let's do this. But I would never do that to her, right? I would never out her, right? Even though I know she'd be so much happier, I'm not gonna do that to her, right? So everybody's out story is their own, and everybody's coming out strategy is mainly based on strategy, relationship building. Like my out strategy was like, I wrote that stuff out. I had like levels, timelines
Of course
of
you
like
did.
how I was gonna do. Of course I did. I'm an organizer, right? Like I knew exactly which circles were gonna know, and then how I was going to announce it. So then it came out, so it was highly positive. But yeah, so that's kind of how I operate. But it was mine, and I would have been devastated if somebody came out before I was ready. It would have been devastating to me, and I know that's true. So the reason I say that granularity, that detail, is because it was mine, and I had the privilege of being able to release it on my own. So I don't care who you are. No one should be forced out of the closet until they're ready.
Okay. Mara Jade?
Yeah, it sounds like I pretty much went through the same exact thought process as Alice, where I was trying to think of certain individuals where it seems like it would be positive to out them, but ultimately landing on it being just not a good thing to do to anyone. Sometimes there can be some pretty bad consequences because I remember when um, Gawker outed Peter Thiel, and then that dude tagged in Hulk Hogan and absolutely destroyed Gawker.
So okay, I'll open to the panel. I guess I'm gonna be the one to disagree with you all again, but that's okay. But
Ready to shit on your takes, Prime.
I can't wait. That's how I love to start my day. All right. So, but well, okay. I'll just say that. I mean, okay. So years ago, when I first learned of this, right? Have you guys ever watched the like it's like a public type access show, but it's like a you can get it on the internet. It's called Gay USA. Have you ever watched that show? You never heard the show? Okay. Well, I've watched it for years, and it features these two individuals. Maybe I can get them here. Never mind. Sorry. But these two individuals, one gay man and one lesbian woman, and they're pretty old. The point is that they've been around for a while, and they grew up all through this. So they were here like around during the ACT UP era, right, of activism here in the States, right. They were activists themselves during all that, and they talked about like when they were outing people. It's been a while since I heard this, but like the point was is that one it had to be normalized, right? That gay people were not like as long as they were this hidden enemy, right? Like as Josie pointed out, as long as they were this hidden enemy, then you can easily demonize them, right? Because you don't know them. Well, of course. I mean, I'm a Joe Schmo, right, in Nebraska, and I don't know any gay people. I don't have any gay people in my life. I have normal people in my life, right? Um, and you can keep going through your life like that and saying all kinds of comments when you have gay people like all around you. And so the targets wasn't like a person like Josie's roommate or friend, right? The targets were like people in the public spotlight, right? Who were like going to gay bars and cruising, right? Those are the people they pulled, they forcibly outed. And more than that, which I thought was more interesting, was like homophobes, right? The people creating public policy who sing the worst things about gay individuals, but again, at those bars, right? Engaging in all kinds of acts. So, especially when it comes to those homophobes, like why not? Like, fuck those guys, right? They're causing so much damage with this legitimacy given to them by being straight, right? That inherent legitimacy that I am straight and I am moralizing, and I'll and these and it seemed like the homophobes were the ones who were the most vicious, like the secretly gay homophobes were the most vicious to the community. So yeah, why not drag them out, take away their legitimacy, right? And be done with it. Josie, please.
Yeah, so I'm always one of those people like those who throw halt stones both get burned. And I think it's very similar to that. It's a parable. I think it was the Dalai Lama, or was it Buddha? I think Buddha said that. Chinese proverb. Anyways, but the thing is, it really is that. So if we say, okay, this person's hateful, and being gay is the worst thing possible, and then we go and we say, look how gay this person is, now cast them out. Right? Like, the idea is it's like we're using the same type of rhetoric to kind of like destroy them. And hypocrisy is important, right? Of course, we want to catch hypocrites. And yes, I think a lot of queer people have made the joke, like I've made the joke even about like Ben Shapiro. I'm like, Ben Shapiro's a closeted trans woman. Everybody effing knows that. Like, like I just like, I just like nobody hates trans women that much unless there's some resentment of wish there. Okay.
Steven Crowder's your target there.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
right. Yeah. So the idea is much. Oh, let me delete that. Oh, sorry. I had something coming in on my phone. So when I look at Sorry, my head got a little cloudy there.
Mhm.
So when I see all of the what was I saying? Darn it.
Stephen
What was it
Crowder,
last
Billy,
Shapiro.
Oh,
Ben Shapiro.
Shapiro.
Yep.
Oh, as much as I can't stand those individuals and they drive me crazy in a lot of ways. I would, even if I knew, like if Ben Shapiro came out to me and was like, Josie, I am a queer, I'm a trans woman. Like I would still be like, wow, that's okay, great. I wouldn't then take that information and be like, look what I just found out, everybody. It would be like, hey, let's walk through this. Let's make it happen. Like, I'm going to encourage the visibility to help that person come out in their own terms rather than getting completely chastised by their own community. They could have the ability to redeem themselves. Now, I know a lot of people want Schadenfreude. Everybody likes the idea of like seeing them burn at the stake for the words that they say, but really nobody should be burning with their words anyway. So it's hard to say because
What
their
about
words are shit.
yeah, what about like politicians who are actively homophobic and are closeted gay but make policy and stuff anti-LGBTQ policy?
Vote
What
them out.
oh,
I,
okay.
yeah,
yeah.
in such a case, like I would still prefer to advocate for, attacking their ideas. I understand like what like, attacking those anti-LGBTQ plus bills and blah blah, like we do all the time now. And that I understand the carrot on a stick that is pointing out the hypocrisy of people who advocate for anti whatever bills and are that thing. I get it, like you really want to like point it out, like, hey, look, I really don't think that it does
Aw.
the kind of
Oh, sorry.
uh work that we think it does. I think it's really just kind of like resentful and like retributive, That's like it's Schadenfreude. Like I get that. I get the very real desire to have that, but it's we've had many conversations about how retribution isn't really the way to go about dealing with people doing the wrong thing or pushing bad legislation. And I think so. I think Kobe said in chat, if this is what that they were referencing, but that I think it's a very bad precedent to get rolling, of like, let's out this person and like weaponize their like them being closeted or weaponize their identity in some way. And then it kind of just calls into question for me, like, are we not trying to get away from some of that identity politics of like having this identity or that identity gives you less or more like you know importance in like legislation and stuff,
Let, Alice, please.
Yeah, you brought up Gay USA, so I pulled up some information. Ann Northrop was on a panel discussing this topic, this exact topic. And Ann talks about the fact that the like mainstream press really wouldn't do that at the time, when she was on this panel. They wouldn't, out a politician or somebody like that. And that she felt it was her journalistic duty to tell the truth. And that's kind of another approach that I think is kind of interesting is um, you don't you wouldn't have like somebody who was well, there's two pieces to this. You wouldn't hide a fact about somebody just because it may harm them as a journalist. You wouldn't do that. So, somebody who was an anti-abortion activist who had an abortion, as a journalist, you wouldn't hide that they were that they had an abortion. If you've had that fact in front of you, you wouldn't hide it just to better their position. So that is one argument I could accept for this. Like, if it comes across your desk that a politician happens to be gay, that's just a fact about that politician. Now, on the flip side of that coin, because I don't think in the first world that being outed as gay or being outed as trans as a politician, as a very wealthy, rich person, anybody who's going to be outed by a media source is not going to have any risk here, right? They're going to have the risk of maybe not getting into office. That's not a big risk. It's not the same risk that somebody like myself or somebody like any of the other trans members that come on this panel would face for being outed as trans, or any of the gay or lesbian members being outed against their will. It's a different type of scenario, right? So remember what we're talking about, celebrity outings, right? We're talking about famous or wealthy or influential people being outed. But the flip side to that coin, though, is when you've got somebody in a third world country, when you've got somebody or in a country where there is danger to their life, even if they are wealthy or influential, that's where it crosses the line of journalistic integrity, right? It's not breaking journalistic integrity to out a Hungarian politician as gay. It's going to lose him his job as a politician. He's not going to be in politics anymore, but he's not going to get killed. He's still going to be really wealthy. He's still going to be very influential. He's just going to be outed as gay. So that's, I think, for me, is the flip side to that coin. I still hold my position that I said at the beginning. I still don't think we should out anybody against their will. But when we're talking about it from a position of being a journalist, I don't see as much of a problem with a journalist literally just telling the truth, as long as they're not legitimately causing, bodily harm to somebody. Outing somebody, who is just a random person as trans, which has happened. Journalists have done this before. That is a problem. But outing a politician or a very rich person or a very influential person as trans, I don't see an issue with that, or trans or gay or lesbian or insert, group here. I don't see a problem with that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I still think you shouldn't do it, but I understand as a journalist doing it.
But Alice, the coin that I would say though on that is they wouldn't, and it leaves the average person, even if not even the average person, even if they're celebrity, like a straight white man. I'm not even going to use white man, right? A straight white man doesn't suffer the same consequences as a gay white man. So therefore, the fact of the matter is, like, LGBT ness or qualities of people have always been something to be attacked, researched, and studied. And people who don't have those qualities don't have to suffer those consequences of having to be those things. So I don't think it's right. It's like a journalist going, I'm gonna go and investigate if this person still has their penis. It's for journalistic integrity. I'm gonna tell the truth. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that to me is like, why? Like, that
Yes.
shouldn't be something that's fair game when it comes to that type of stuff.
And that's the flip side of that coin, is that outing somebody as being trans, for instance, or being post-op. There's actually a really famous example of this. I cannot remember her name offhand. The first person to work with to make Moog synthesizers famous. Can't remember her name offhand. She was trans. You might not even know that, but it was a giant scandal because she was outed as trans by a journalist for literally no reason. She was, passing in society. She was treated just like any other woman was. There was no reason to out her as trans. She was literally outed for the scandal of it all, right? For the views. And this is in 1970 something. This is a while ago, right? And we still have this problem today. So again, my position is still, you should never out anybody against their will at all. Even a gay politician in Hungary who's going to gay orgies and then also writing up and signing anti-gay laws. I still don't think you should out that person against their will. But I do say that, yeah, as a journalist, you can hide behind that like journalistic integrity. And yes, that Jizzy, that does mean that you're going to get journalists who hide behind journalistic integrity and say, well, I'm just telling the truth. They used to be a man, and you're going to get that. And you can't really avoid that because to some extent you can't protect everybody. We can kind of like call out those journalists as being, harmful, causing harm to somebody for no real reason, being a transphobic piece of shit. We can call those people out. But yeah, I mean, telling the truth can be an important part of being a journalist, even if it does cause harm sometimes. But there's a good example of this. Again, I'm so sorry I can't remember her name. There was a trans person that committed suicide over being outed by a journalist. And the journalist's answer was, well, it's just, integrity, and yeah, hiding behind that when you're going to cause harm, that is still going to be a problem. Again, politician in Hungary, we can say pretty clearly that guy is not going to be a politician anymore, but he's got a lot of money and a lot of influence. Now, random trans journalists at Jalopnik or something, probably a different target, right? And that's what this type of target was. So you do need to also consider the situation, the person, the what exactly is going to be the result. And if you can reasonably assume that the result is going to be bodily harm, it's going to be putting this person entirely out of a job, unable to eat. It's going to, put them into a situation where they're likely to be ostracized by the society they're
But
in.
what if
You
they?
can do
But
it.
that would be like you don't know people's mental health either,
Yeah, but you can't
right? Like,
solve
I
for
mean,
that either.
I know, but like the idea is like if somebody's not coming out because they are afraid that their family is going to like lose, and if they lose their family, they lose their entire like it's their entire existence and want to being. That's why I'm saying, like, when it comes to identity, that needs to be off limits, even if you're a journalist, because if I just can't imagine a journalist wanting to be responsible for somebody just taking their own life.
Wanting to be. They don't give a shit. They want to get views and they want to get money, and that's what journalists are here for. And they are here to do that most of the time. So I mean,
Mm,
I agree with you, right? But they don't give a shit most of the time. So
yeah, I agree with everything you said. I was just going to bring up a really recent point of, I think it was the New York Times day or late last night, outed a Parkland survivor whose father is a QAnon conspirator and doesn't even believe that his child went through the shooting. So this is the last graduating class, and the New York Times released their photo.
Mm.
Yeah, so they're getting harassed, and so very dangerous.
So hold on. So you're expanding this now. Should we not out anyone for bad behavior? So that, and I haven't read that story myself. I've like heard that story, but my understanding of that person was that they were harassing their own son because they believe their son is a crisis actor. Amazingly, like holy crap! Thinking that they were part of the conspiracy to have the shooting so that they could take away guns. I don't know, whatever, right? Like, who knows what this person's mind. But yeah, like so, there's a story about a person doing this bad behavior, and so like this is the person doing it. Like, can you not, for any reason, reveal a person like who's doing bad behavior? So let's take away the gay and trans part out of it for a second. For any reason, if someone's doing bad behavior, should we not put them in public like that? Hey, Maddie. Maddie, our good friend. I'm so happy that Maddie is here. She's amazing. Great ray of sunshine in our lives. Maddie, thanks for stopping by. If you want to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I like jumped off of. I had a very chatty client, who I adore because they're my client, but also I was like, stop it, got stuff to do, and so I was like, yeah, glad I could finally be here. And then of course, like all my technology broke as it does when you need it to work. So I was just like, well, good. So I'm glad to be here, but I do have a thought on this because I think I want to draw a distinction because I think this question in general is fascinating, but I want to draw a distinction between calling out bad behavior and shaming them for like because I think the crux or like the power of their, like if it's homophobia or transphobia, comes from essentially trying to shame and condemn. So when that same like shame is then pointed back, I want to make sure that like I sometimes struggle because I'm like, are we simply adopting like a similar type of scorn back at them if they like are proven to be, they a homophobic politician who is also secretly a gay man, a closet man. I struggle with then like just wanting to out them, because then we're just sort of doing it's like a form of then like shaming them. But I do think that bad actors and like bad behavior need to be called out, but it's difficult sometimes to find like a distinction or like a happy middle ground in doing that. But I do struggle sometimes with like shaming them, saying like, oh, look, you're a gay man, you love dick too. And it's like unhelpful, in working against the stigma, but useful in being like, you're kind of a hypocrite if you want to make all of this illegal and like criminalize that kind of behavior, and you are simply engaging in the behavior yourself. So yeah, it's something I struggle with for that reason.
All right. Anyone else want to jump? Go on. Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce you. Marjorie, please.
I just have this thought, like, say it's like a politician that we're trying to out, and it causes their career to go into shambles and they don't get elected. I feel like they have a never-ending list of ghouls they can just replace that person with, and I don't really see this as like a solution. Also, Wendy Carlos was the Moog keyboardist that was trans.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh, sorry, Josie, you want to go? Oh, Josie talking.
Yeah. I was talking to my crowd, but I do want to go. And Maddie basically described the like hot coal analogy, like throwing a hot coal at somebody else. It's like it just doesn't do the damage that you think you're gonna do. And so I would out a Nazi in a heartbeat.
Oh,
I would out criminals, people who are doing crime, like all those people out. Like that's against society. But when it comes to like people's identities, that's not fair game to me.
So hold on.
And
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I apologize.
yeah, go ahead. No, I am
Okay.
done.
Yeah. So a Nazi is not a person who necessarily commits a crime, right? A Nazi could be a person who simply, you know, well, you know what they believe, right? But believes that stuff and may act on that stuff in sort of like a, like let's say they're a politician, in terms of public policy, right? So white supremacists will act on that. But that doesn't necessarily mean they've actually committed any sort of crime, and the consequences for their career could be just as severe as having out them as being gay or something, right? So in terms of their family and in terms of like when you like if you're worried about someone's mental health, well, they might not hurt themselves too, right? So if it's a white supremacist who has not done a crime but is pushing dangerous public policy, right? I don't understand, like, what's the
That's
difference?
a really fine line to say that somebody who holds an ideology such as white supremacy in political office hasn't committed a crime. Ideologically, their idea has spread and caused somebody harm. Period.
Hold on, but
also,
the same thing.
That worldview would influence. Like, I think the difference here is that, like, if you're a true Nazi and that was like your worldview, like, I would imagine that would influence the policy you push. How it's like not like that a Nazi is like who's a secret Nazi is trying to make being a Nazi illegal.
No.
Whereas like.
But Maddie, but Josie, we're just talking about people like actual politicians, or not even just politicians, like public figures pushing anti-gay legislation, or like there was I was looking at a list of pastors, right? The most favorite one was Ted Haggard, if I'm remembering this correctly. Was Ted Haggard the one who, like, they call him at an airport? This might have been a politician. They call one of these guys at a fucking airport, right?
He was tapping his foot, right?
No. You're talking about the other one.
No,
you're talking about the senator who was in that bathroom in the airport, right? Where he was
the Minnesota airport,
yeah.
But I could be wrong.
and he had his legs spread. So there's not so many sorts of these things, but he had his legs spread into like the other stall.
The fact that we have to debate which one we're talking about. Which homophobic politician was caught in a bathroom
there's so many. There's so many, but the one you're talking about was caught in a stall. He had his legs spread, right, and tapping into a other stall.
But,
and it was like a signal.
He outed himself, though.
But okay, yeah, but no, but she brought it up. So that's what I'm talking about. That's something different, though. But and it was really funny.
He asked Jesus for help, and he's cured now. So
his wife. No, the funny part of that was like his wife afterwards says like, well, when he uses a bathroom, he takes a wide stance, and that's why his. The famous wide stance. That was beautiful. All right, getting back to the subject though. But you're right, that he did end up more or less outing himself. But he got caught by the police. He fuck, that's so funny. There was one, and I think it was Ted Haggard who got caught this way. He did get caught, but he got caught like he was like at an airport, right? Like with a guy, and it was like, oh, that's like my baggage handler or something. And it was
Yeah, I
no,
bet
it was
he
his like
is.
his gay escort that he was with, right? It was fucking hilarious. But that guy actually pushed I think it was the looking for the amendment to restrict gay marriage, right? A U.S. amendment
Mm.
to restrict gay marriage. That's actual harm. And then preaching about it, right? That's actual. I don't need to tell you all about the harm that that does, and in terms of religion, telling you that you are a sinner, right? And there's something wrong with you. So of course he's doing harm. So I think this analogy works perfectly well. This metaphor relating the two. Right? Yes, and you can, and that person, as far as I know, Ted Haggard, did not break any laws, right? But they still were doing incredible harm. So relating that back to a politician like what's his fucking face that was Trump's lackey until Trump got pissed at him. He was the attorney general, but then he got
Sessions.
Jeff Sessions, yeah. Jeff Sessions, yeah, he's a fucking white supremacist. He's a white supremacist. As far as I know, though, he's never actually broken any laws, so we can't get him.
Yeah,
that.
but his ideology.
And his ideology is terrible.
So,
and the
I
ideology
got
of
a
homophobes
question
is
for the
terrible.
panel.
So.
I think I got a question for the panel because I just asked my chat, and it's kind of one of those things. So if you were the one that you saw Mitch McConnell was like, hey, I'm actually gay, but you're the only person on the planet that knew, would you out him? Raise hands, who would do it?
Is Mitch McConnell attacking a gay individual?
Well, he would.
Is he?
He's super gay. He's super Republican, though. Super gay. He's super Republican.
He certainly stops a lot of legislation.
I don't remember. I don't remember if that was.
Yeah, he's blocking the Equality Act right now. So sure.
Okay, well then, all right, sure. Let's say fuck him. Yeah, fuck that guy.
You would say fuck him. Okay, so it looks like we have one person. Oh, Amanda. Amanda too. Okay. All right, it's interesting. It's just really interesting because for me, it's like I'm not trying to make a moral judgment on anybody. I just wanted to know because it's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, it would be a moral quandary, but I would probably be like, all right, like this isn't good.
I'm
Like,
asking.
you need to come out.
I say that I'm like uncomfortable with the notion of outing. However, I know for me personally, especially when it's someone who has said heinous shit and like actively works against or like pushes harmful legislation. I wish I could say I was a better person and was like not reveling in the fact that like they were outed to be that which they claim to hate, but like I'm only human and I just like fucking hate those people. So
you're the best human. But yeah, go ahead, Sunny. And then Alice, I'm not sure if you had your hand up previously. Okay, go ahead, Sunny.
So do people on the panel think or believe that, outing a politician such as like Mitch McConnell in this made up case that we have would provide like a marketable difference to his like power? Do you think like that the people who voted him in would be less likely to vote for him? Or like what I'm wondering is like, is there an actual use, or is there like is in doing this, is it going to actually lead to less harm, or is it just feel good?
So
because like, yeah, it feels good.
Well, if it feels good, then you should do it. But no, but no. I think actually for Mitch McConnell, and I think in this day and age, actually he might be fine if you out him as gay. Now, if you out him as trans, that'd be interesting. I think that'd be much different if you out him as trans. And I think it would have a market difference in his power. Like his entire party is fanatical about what the trans are doing, right? Like, so I think that would actually.
Well, I think it would just take him out of power.
Yeah.
It would just take him out of power, and like, yeah, fuck Mitch McConnell, want him out of power for sure. But it doesn't mean that a less shitty Mitch McConnell is going to take his spot.
It's not the same. I disagree with this so much. But go ahead, Alice, you go first.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, you bring up like a point that somebody in America being outed as gay is not a problem. Pretty much in any state right now. No matter the most conservative state, a politician being outed as gay is really not a serious issue. Most of the United States supports like gay people actively, very highly supports gay people, even the most conservative areas. So it's not a big deal to be outed as gay. Now, yeah, of course, if somebody's trans, we're the current demonized, minority group of sexuality and gender, trans people are the super scary group right now, right? Like, they're taking over our children, and there's men in the bathrooms and whatever, but like I think that's the thing, is that in America, outing Mitch McConnell as gay is gonna just be like, he's gonna be like, yeah, I'm gay, I love dick. And then he's gonna continue with his the same power that he has in exactly the same ways, and it's gonna disappear from the media eye in literally 3 weeks when Donald Trump starts talking about how he does some other shit, or China turns out to have nukes or whatever. Mitch McConnell being gay is just not going to change anything about the world. Mitch McConnell being trans, yeah, but again, because it's demonizing, trans people are like the active
Do you
harm in
think
the world.
do you think the Republicans would start using it like to
Yeah.
help themselves? To be like,
Yes,
look at how big tent we are.
they've
What
already
if it
done it.
what if it backfired and instead
Fucking
gave them
Milo.
more
Milo Yiannopoulos, like the fucking, like, he's basically just a right-wing troll, and they're like, well,
He runs a conversion camp now. He actually has a
oh,
conversion therapy center, like straight
amazing.
up.
Of course he
Yeah.
does.
Great, thanks, Milo.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right?
But
Oh
okay,
my God.
so I disagree with this point. Mara made it, and then maybe I guess Sunny made it as well. That them simply they'll be replaced with another Republican bot, and that Republican bot will be equal to the previous one. No, that Mitch McConnell has done serious harm to our republic, right? And it was his strategy. Right, it was his strategy, one that obstructed Barack Obama the entire time. Right, was it 3/4 of his presidency? Right, was just like gone because of his strategy and what he implemented. Right, and then we lost 2 Senate seats, or sorry, not excuse me, Supreme Court seats because of his actions. Right, that was him. He did that. He is not equal to some other like jerk off, like backbencher Republican senator that could replace him. Right? Those aren't the same things. So
That's true. And mhm.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You
I just
good.
like totally interrupted you.
It's fine.
But
We love
like
you.
I was gonna say also, like, the one difference too with someone like Mitch McConnell is he has years of political clout and connections, and like that sort of amassed political power that uniquely allows him to be especially damaging. You remove that power vacuum, it's not like whoever fills his seat or something else is going to then just like continue his work, like, pick up where he left off, because they still have all that runway of not having been in the Senate for as long as he has, not having established the connections he has. So just because someone else sort of will backfill in terms of, like assuming a leadership position, that doesn't mean that they are going to be nearly as destructive as he is. I know there's still like plenty of ghouls in the wings. However, they don't have like the years of just like amassed power and influence that someone like a Mitch McConnell has.
And because of that, yeah, and like in relating that again back to the subject, and Mitch McConnell, he's less with the social issues. He's less. I mean, he'll go along with it because whatever, right? He doesn't give a shit. But like he's less with the social issues. But for one who was right, who let's just pretend that he really hated the gays and the trans, right? And he was pushing that kind of legislation. The damage that he can do is not equal to the damage that some random other person can do. And so I there is value in removing this person, right? It would set, let's say he's not one of these. He's not like a evangelical, but if he was an evangelical, right? It would set their movement back, just like outing Ted Haggard set their movement back because he was big. He was advising. He was like the spiritual advisor of George W. Bush. It was a big deal when this happened. It was huge when this happened. So when he was outed as gay, right? So yes, why not? If these people are doing damage to our communities, to our gay brothers and sisters, why not?
How does outing them as gay help with that? They're already doing damage.
Because he lost all his Ted Haggard. I think still coming this. I'm pretty sure he got tossed out of his church, right? So like that was the end of his career. Now, is he going to be replaced with someone else? Because like clearly his congregation was happy to hear that message, right? Is he going to be replaced with someone else who's anti-gay? Of course, yeah. I'm sure he was. But that person, as we just related, right, doesn't have the juice, doesn't have the connections, doesn't have the ear of politicians. This guy was in the White House all the time. The other person was replaced with him wasn't. How does that not a help? As what I understand. Go ahead, Josie, please.
Yeah. So it's not a help. And this is why. And I've been thinking about this because it's like, so you just gave an example of how the Republicans will just repudiate somebody, kick them out, ruin their career, end them, run them out of town. What you're doing at that point is you're just emboldening their ideology to say, see how bad it is? We kick out our own. And we're going to get somebody who really is this bigoted and straight and cis. And you're just like making the ooze more pure. And it's like, okay, we're getting out the particles that weren't all the way corrupt. Now we're just going to have this pure ooze of hatred and diabolical people that are like 100% cookie cutter, white, cis, like all of these things that are just like, they only want that purity, right? And don't want any other spectrum in there. And I just don't think it's a good idea because like, look what we did a second ago when we talked about the Republican about in the bathroom, right? We just made a joke about it, like how skeezy he was. And he's like, God, that idiot outed himself as gay. And we laugh about it. But the thing is, I don't want and we're using the Mitch McConnell hypothetical. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, Mitch McConnell, the most evil villain of democracy in the last century. Yeah, we got him because he's a gay guy. Got him. And that's like,
Yeah.
why didn't we get him for the war crimes? Why didn't we get him for the obstruction? Why didn't we get him for all of the white supremacy things? Why didn't we get him for all that? And it's like all of a sudden it's like gay, gone. That's
Like
what
we're
makes me
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Like,
we're
what is it
weaponizing his
that's so powerful?
constituents' homophobia.
But if
It's
you
almost,
had
right?
gotten him out, okay, no, like exactly. Hold on. If George Bush, let's say you got George Bush out, like George W. Bush, out as gay somehow before, because it happened really quickly, but like before 9/11, what? How would history have changed? How would history have changed? So if that's the example you're going to give, right? How would history have been completely different? So now let's move to after 9/11, after the damage, right? Well, that takes away his power. That he right now he's being rehabilitated in the eyes of the press, right? Despite all the terrible things he had done. But that's one of the reasons that you can do that is because he actually had a power base that missed him afterwards. If he had been outed from that power base, well then no, there's no one to rehabilitate his image for, right? Like he's gone. He's not wanted in his party. So that damage in his ideology is nerfed. Now, if like you're saying that, do I want him to be gone for the actual war crimes? Yes. All right. I want him to be prosecuted. I've talked about this before many times, right? But but we got him out that way, whatever. As long as the harm is ended, right? If we got him out of the White House and say also Dick Cheney somehow, right? And we replace that administration with another one that didn't torture. Do you think those prisoners who were spared would care how you got them out? Would that matter? Like in between the election or something? Would they care? How? So go ahead, Alice, please.
No, Sunny first. She's had her hand raised.
Sunny?
Thank
Oh,
you.
I
Yeah,
didn't see your. Okay, please go ahead.
I just put it down because I feel like a fool standing here, like with my arm up the whole time. So I see what you're saying, Prime, of like anything to get the baddie. Like I agree. Like I agree in so many ways of like that the priority is to get the people in power doing bad things out of power so they can stop doing bad things. Yeah, for sure. But like, and then I guess the question I have is like, the way that you're advocating for doing this is in the hypothetical of outing their sexuality. Does that mean that we should be utilizing like any information about this person to out them on if it would mean like taking them out of power, because I'm also kind of fuzzy on the
Yeah.
connection between like outing them and taking away their power. I'm a little
Like, what if he had
fuzzy there.
AIDS?
Well,
Or
like, yeah,
like,
okay. And what I was thinking about was like some, you know, some kind of medical thing that people demonize, which AIDS is a great example of that. You know, I was thinking of certain like neurological things or mental disorders that, like, should we out them as having that, because their constituency would then be less likely to vote for them. Because I don't like that precedent either. That sounds a little nasty to me.
that's why I struggle with it.
What we're
Yeah.
talking about right now actually is a big deterrent for women running in for political office and stuff, because of the ramifications of, you know, getting your name out there and all the, like, look at Katie Hill with, although that's a little bit of a different situation, but it is, you know, revenge porn and stuff. And so yeah, I agree that it's setting a really awful precedent. I don't encourage doing it, but if it did come down to Mitch McConnell, I guess all my morals go out the window, and I totally out him. So
All our principles have a limit.
Do you want me to answer that question or no?
Sure. Like, do you think that, like, once this person is in a position of power, I guess we're particularly talking about politicians here, is like all information about that person on the table to be like morally good to like tell everyone about, like to out, I suppose.
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to really think about that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like if it was because they were. Okay, you know what? Okay, so here's what I would say for now. Right, and my answer might change on this if I sat here and thought more about it. But if and now fuck with George W. Bush, actually this counts, right? If they were pushing anti-AIDS legislation, right? Then yeah, fuck you. What are you doing? Right? George W. Bush, he cut funding for like AIDS help, like AIDS aid in Africa, right? Like that's one of the things they did, right? Like AIDS education, AIDS outreach. That's one of the things he did, right? So if you tell me he has AIDS and he's getting care for that while screwing over so many of our brothers and sisters in a foreign land, yeah, fuck him, actually. Yeah, fuck him. But
I get.
no, please go ahead. And Alice, I see you're.
I get the point that you're making, and that, you know, the things I bring up, which, you know, a lot of people are bringing up, is that, oh my god, I'm gonna lose it. Oh.
Take your time. Take your time. You get my point, and the thing that I was bringing up.
Yeah.
Because I said fuck him to George W. Bush.
Oh yeah. That say in the case that he was like receiving care for AIDS, but he was putting out all this legislation that was harming people with AIDS. So there's that hypocrisy. But I don't really feel that just pointing out that hypocrisy is, you know, is enough to like to do meaningful change. I feel like there is so much hypocrisy pointed out in our politicians all of the time that that leads to nothing, and like they become great talking points for us on these panels and stuff, but nothing actually happens. And, you know, and it's like, you know, throw everything at the wall to try and get something to stick to get these politicians out of power. But I think there's something to say about normalizing outing people as being a greater problem than like this fear.
So this is why when Josie brought up George W. Bush as gay, or maybe I brought up, I don't know who.
No,
someone
Mitch
brought
McConnell.
Up.
You
Mitch
brought
McConnell,
up
excuse me.
him.
Excuse me. Mitch McConnell
Yeah.
as gay. All right. Allegedly. So
Allegedly.
like.
Got some inside info there, Ryan.
If this is why I changed it to trans, because not all things do equal damage, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, our trans brothers and sisters are being stigmatized to a greater extent, and so I think we can all agree that if that came out, it'd be different if he came out with AIDS. So I guess if you're saying that, and this is not what you're saying, but this is what I'm saying, is that if it's not going to do enough damage, then why bother? Why maybe further stigmatize the community? I think there's something to that. So then when I metaphorically shoot, I'm aiming to metaphorically kill, right? So if I was going to do it, then I would do it on something that I think would actually be effective. And being trans in this environment would. Alice.
Yeah. So first off, that's interesting. We should definitely just invent, like, Mitch McConnell is trans. I think we've already done that, actually. There's a lot of fan fiction about Mitch McConnell. It's really disgusting. You shouldn't look it up. Anyway, so so here's my problem with what you're positing, Prime, is that essentially you're saying that because this person was trying to hide that they're gay and they were doing, or that they were trans or whatever, right? And then we should out them as that, because that will, that will undo the harm that they've done, right? It'll take them out of power. So what you've essentially said is you've created a self-perpetuating cycle. Well, it turns out that when you come out as gay, when you are a conservative or a Republican, you get removed out of office. So now that means what actually has to happen is we've got to have conservative or Republican politicians that absolutely are not gay, nor are they trans, nor do they have AIDS, because that'll get them out of office. So then you just self-perpetuate the cycle. So now the next politician, they're not going to be gay, they're not going to have AIDS, and they won't be trans. Don't worry, they won't have any of that. So that's the problem, is you've essentially just self-perpetuated. You've basically just created, you've enforced this cycle. It didn't help.
No, I
You're
disagree with this completely.
purifying the ooze.
I completely
it.
disagree with all of this. Once again,
Purify it.
because, and we've covered this already, and I'll say it again, is that all these politicians are not equal. Right? There are leaders within a movement, within certain issues, right? Not all. Someone asked me in chat, right? They said, and I'll read it for you all. This has got a very okay, it's a very long name. Anyway, he says, feel like this is the most extreme example, making it easy as opposed to, let's say, a rising moderate Republican who is mum on LGBT issues. And I replied to them, I went out that person because they're not actually being a hypocrite on these issues. Right? I wouldn't. That's not a thing of theirs. I actually wouldn't bother. But that's also important, because while they might be doing damage in some other area, they're not doing damage in this area. Not everyone's a leader on every issue, right? Like there are some leaders, some politicians who focus on like foreign policy, right? They focus on transportation, right? There are leaders within a specific area. If you're a leader in harming our trans brothers and sisters, then fuck you. Then you I'm calling out, right? I'm going to do it. And the person that replaces them does not necessarily, will not necessarily have that as their focus. And even if they are, well, then I'll still fight them. I still fight them.
You just made that be their first focus, though. You just made them run for office saying, well, I'm not gay, and he was. I'm not trans, and they were. You literally just gave them ammunition to win the election, literally just by saying, well, I'm not gay. You literally gave them ammunition.
I don't give a shit. What the fuck? I don't see like what this matters.
Well, then you're not actually helping. You're just trying to cause the most harm to an individual.
No. Disagree. Because you're saying that like them running within the Republican primary, right? Spewing hate. Well, that's what any fucking Republican most do, right? They're going to spew hate one way or the other. Right? So they're just spewing hate now, additionally, at their opponent. They're just having another cudgel to hit their opponent with, right? But and assuming that person didn't resign already, right? But one way or the other, like it's no big deal to me that in the Republican Party they're going to be spewing hate. I'm trying to degrade their movement by taking out the leaders who are doing the most harm. That's
I got issue. Those gays out.
And then fighting them. Not my getting the gays out, because if there was, well, hold on, that's going to distract.
Those gays are so dramatic.
Yeah,
those gays are so dramatic. Get them out of office. Don't want the gays in office.
And that's going to distract.
We're a lot.
But yeah,
okay.
We are a lot.
A lot.
But yeah, I would say, yeah. So I would say, as long as I'm degrading their ability to organize around these things, right? Then yeah, we are doing a service. Of course. I don't. If we got what's his face that you guys said, Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions out, right?
Sure.
Is is he equal, right? Do you would say that amount of harm Jeff Sessions has done as a fucking white supremacist, is that equal to if you pick a Republican out of a hat to what they have done or they would do?
Doesn't matter. You're qualifying it.
Why?
You're
Sorry.
qualifying it. Like like it's like you're qualifying, okay, this time it's okay and this time it's not. And
Yeah.
it's just an impossible standard.
No,
It's
it
a
isn't.
moving target. It's
Sorry.
a you're it's like, I know, Prime, I know, I got you. It's fine. So there's actually two things. Somebody in my chat said this, which is basically this is the ends justifying the means. And that's always dangerous. And then secondly, why like who's a very stigmatized minority we never talk about? The gay Republicans, the trans Republicans. It's like we're gonna now stigmatize the most marginalized person, which would be the gay Republican. And so the idea of like using that identity as a weapon, and the last thing, and I want to bring this up because I want to talk to you about this because I'm a campaigner, right? And one of the things that campaigns do is opposition research. And so would you say that somebody's sexual orientation is fair game for a candidate to find about somebody and to just go after? Because it's like no matter how you win, you're gonna win, right? That's how you that it's like you're seeing it as a zero-sum game. And that can be very dangerous, especially when campaign worlds begin. So it's like this is just open now. You could talk about their health, you could talk about their sexual orientation, you could talk about their relationship status, you could talk about all these things because we're perpetuating that as an effective strategy.
So
Keep the gays out of the Republicans.
I would say that if in terms of if once again the individual of the Republican is secretly gay and campaigning on family values and how we need to promote a cis-normative lifestyle, right? And protecting our little girls from men in dresses in the bathroom, right? Then I say fuck them. Then in
But
that
what
case,
about the dog whistlers?
excuse me.
The dog whistlers, the people who say the quiet part out loud is what you're talking about. But what about the people who are more sinister? Like you could even interpret it as such. Like, yeah, they may not say they're like a family's values candidate, but they're always going to be voting against trans legislation.
Oh, I mean, if they
Like,
have a
there's
record
so
of
many
that.
ways you can qualify it.
I mean,
Well, the
if they have a
record is a
record of,
vote.
yeah.
It's
So,
just one vote.
so I'm a little
And the
confused. I'm
entire,
sorry.
like, think about it. The entire Arkansas Republican legislation in the state of Arkansas would be qualified under your premise if that's the case.
Sorry, the entire state legislature in Arkansas. Oh, I mean,
Because
if
they
it,
all voted
I,
to remove healthcare
Oh yeah,
from
it
trans
passed.
okay,
kids.
It
okay,
passed unanimously. Yeah.
great. Well, then, if they are hurting our brothers and sisters, then fuck them. Yeah.
I know.
Uh,
I get that. I get that
How much
sentiment,
harm can I do?
but the ends don't justify the means because campaigns are already so crazy.
So, hon, so you, and this is something I wanted to bring up with you previously, and get this answer from you. So, if you said that if someone was a Nazi, and I use white supremacists instead, but like if someone was a Nazi, that you would out them. And first of all, let me ask two questions. One, would you out them if they have not actually, as far as you know, committed a crime?
If they were at a rally, yes, I would out them.
A
If they were
rally?
like taking photos or
Okay.
there's like letters or any type of correspondence
Okay.
that I came across that they were like communicating favorably with white supremacists, yes, I would out them.
Okay. So why are you making a special exception specifically for identity?
Because being gay doesn't put people in concentration camps.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
The gay ideology
uh,
is it. Sorry, I know that sounded weird. Thank you, Alice. The gay ideology is being a gay person isn't going to give you a favorable opinion of putting people in concentration camps. However, being a white supremacist Nazi does give you that favorable point of view. So therefore, that ideology is dangerous and one is completely harmless.
What Josie's saying is like being a Nazi is universally bad. Being a gay conservative is not bad.
But
That's the thing, is that you're using essentially like this as a political harm for them, and that's the problem.
they're
Is
not gay conservatives. No, they're cis conservatives. Didn't you hear? No, he's got a wife and kids, right? No,
It's like
he's
in Russia. Russia doesn't have gay people, guys. It just doesn't happen.
they don't
so
exist.
There's no gays in Russia.
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so no,
It's just-
so
they're not there.
that cis person is what we're
They all moved
talking
away.
about, and they are saying, well, then, are you trans? Are you gay? Get your ass in conversion therapy. That's where you belong, right? Taking away your health care, ensuring that you don't get the care that we both know that you deserve, right? That's a cis man doing that. No, not a gay person.
No,
And-
but that's not the same. That's not even comparable. Like being cis is an immutable quality, just like being
No, I'm
trans
saying they're
or being
secret.
gay.
I'm implying that they're secretly gay, right? Like
Well,
that's a
if they're
cis man that
secretly
we're
gay,
dealing with. Yeah.
But it's not their gayness that is taking my rights away.
Yeah, it's their actions. That's the problem. I don't care about the fact
But
that
I
they're
don't.
gay.
But I don't want to take their rights away because they're gay.
They're not taking
Yeah.
their. Are your rights take? Well, hold on. Hold on. Wait a second. Let's tease this out. Exactly what you're saying.
Wait. Let's step back for 1 second, because you've already acknowledged
Sure.
that somebody being outed as gay or trans is going to hurt them. See, and that you're literally using that as ammunition to hurt them.
Yeah.
So that's the problem here, is that you're literally using that against this person. That's the problem here.
I'm
That's
using
the core issue.
no. They're being hurt because they are within a hate cult, being the Republican Party,
Uh-huh.
right? That takes out that hate against the undesirable of the day. Right now, that's our trans people, right? So that's what's hurting them, not the fact of being gay, right? Simply being gay is not in itself a harm. It's the fact that you are gay within. If they were, so if you outed, so let's take this to the other side. If we outed a gay Democrat, right, who was secretly gay, and had not been like campaigning on family values, like a conservative Democrat, something like that, but just secretly gay, what harm will be done, right? What would happen then? Maybe they would have some social backlash, but their power probably still be intact, right? So it's not the act of being gay that's the problem. It's the fact that they're part of the conservative party, going on, who all have hate boners, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem, and that's the thing that I'm fighting against. Well, that and the act of damage that they're doing to the cause.
Multiple people have pointed this out to you, though, and you keep brushing over it.
Sure.
I think, and that's that you're deciding that you're in the right to out this conservative as gay, to get them out of power, right? You're saying, okay, well, they're gay or they're trans or whatever. It turns out we get them out of power. Okay, so then the problem is, multiple other people have mentioned this as well. So it's not my thinking alone. Is that why is it that, for instance, somebody who is a Republican candidate can't out a Democrat that is gay or trans or something like that to harm them specifically? There's no reason they can't. Under your rules, they're going to get that Democrat out of power, so they should do that.
Hold on.
They should out that
Could you
Democrat.
repeat yourself? Sorry, I apologize. Could you repeat yourself?
Yeah. The question is, why should somebody who is a Republican candidate not use somebody's sexuality against them then? Run on family values, win the vote by saying, well, I'm not gay and this other guy is.
They do it anyway.
Okay.
They do
But
it
do you
anyway.
support that? Because you're supporting that right now. That's the problem, is you can't just take a position that says I'm right and the other side is wrong. You can't do that. You
And-
have
and
to.
also-
No, sorry. Go, Josie, please.
But also, I'm sorry, Alice, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But also, we haven't thought about something. Somebody, brilliant Derpy in chat actually said this. What about false allegations? What if there was like a credible enough of a false accusation of Jeff Sessions, right? Like we were saying back then, and like he went to a gay bar, did nothing, just went because it was like a friend, and the friend didn't tell him it was a gay bar, and he like literally walked out the second he walked in. But the cameras were taken, the pictures were made, like it is done. And now it's getting plastered everywhere. He's denying that he was gay, but the pictures are too incriminating, and his life is completely ruined. So what about that level of behavior?
Sure. So you guys are asking two different things. So I want to.
I don't think it is.
No. I just want to.
Hold
on. I'm sorry.
It's the same.
I don't think it is, but I'm trying to. I want to answer. I just want to.
Okay.
All right, one at a time. So, Josie, in that case, and what you're talking about, I would say that it's. I would say fuck him. What? Like, what do I do? I would say fuck him. Hold on, because the harm that he's doing is actually still real, right? The fact that the fact that he's gay is not real, right? But you don't understand. You think that I'm weaponizing their gayness. I'm weaponizing their hate. That's what I'm weaponizing. Right?
You're just driving them further into this position, though. You're driving the Conservative Party further into that position.
The point is not to convince people, right? The point of outing Ted Haggard wasn't to convince his congregation that gay people are actually pretty swell, right? It actually might have someone, right? Oh, actually, I know Ted Haggard. He actually treated me well, and maybe gay people aren't so bad. Maybe we shouldn't have forced him to resign from his position, right? Maybe it would have done, but that's not the point. And I've said the point many times, right? You seem to be ignoring that point. The point is to degrade their movement, right? This is the point that you guys keep. No. Let me get this out. The point is to degrade the movement, the anti-LGBT movement, and I'm not weaponizing their gayness. I'm weaponizing their hate for gay people, the hate that they use, that they profit from. People get rich off of this. Steven Crowder right now is getting Steven. I mean, there's one celebrity, but I'd say it's Steven Crowder. Everyone would call him. I'd say it's Steven Crowder, right? He's got like a collection of dresses and wigs, and he really likes, and that's fine. Hey, okay, dress up like a lady. But while he's doing that, he's actually criticizing the trans individuals and saying like, "Oh, why would you accept a man in a dress, like working out here in your gym, right? Isn't that silly to do, right?" But if you're actually trans, no, then I'm gonna call you out. Fuck you for what you're doing, for the hate, because Steven Crowder, he's like popular with kids, right? With him and his like juvenile bullshit humor, right? He's popular with kids. How many trans kids have gotten harassed because of like what he has done, right? Like I'm sure you can agree with me on this one, right? How many has that happened? If we could end that by outing him, why wouldn't we take that? I don't get it, and I'm not weaponizing his transness. The hate that he has employed. But
boy, these people are using torture. Let's torture them so they stop.
Sure. If it stops other people, if it stops the harm from other people, again, going back to the Guantanamo Bay, right? If George Bush had been out, right? Tell me, and then we replaced with another administration that actually gave a shit about like people in Guantanamo Bay, right? Which we haven't done yet, so we're still working on that one. But like, if that had been the case, do you think they would have given a shit how you did it? Like, if the torture, Alice, if the torture stops, let's talk about that. If the torture stops,
so do the ends justify the means?
Ends don't justify the means.
So,
the ends don't justify
you
the
would
means.
have people, as they are now, stay within Guantanamo Bay for decades, and to be doing enhanced interrogation.
No, it's not. You remove one person and everything will change.
No, it's
Is that the assumption?
No. We're talking about harm done, and as a president, yes, you could actually have reversed. Okay, you could actually have made a difference here, right? Like, first of all, not putting more people on Guantanamo Bay, right? And then fighting to get them taken out. Like, that's the point. I'm trying to relate harm to harm here, right? So in that case, so what difference does it make to them if George W. Bush happened to be gay? He got outed him out as gay, and the torture stopped. Are you saying that instead of actually stopping that harm, that's better that they continue to be tortured, but like hopefully we can work on George W. Bush and open up his heart in private?
I don't know what fallacy you're doing, but you're doing one. Like,
how is this a fallacy?
It's a
Can I not?
I'm thinking about phalluses right now.
Someone
penises?
Did someone
I'm always thinking about
penis?
my own. Like it's always in the back of my mind. It's like, how's that doing? But I don't know. Whatever. But like, so what do you? No, Alice. Like, why? With those? Is it
You
wrong? Is it not doing more harm to keep those prisoners in torture rather than outing one guy as gay and hopefully, let's say, somehow taking down his administration? I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah, you're taking the position of ends justify the means, and I think a lot of people in this panel disagree with your original position of ends justify the means, and that's where you're facing some problems here. Is that we don't agree with you that ends justify the means. It's that you need to consider both, and you're not considering both, and that's what I think the rest of the panel is complaining at you about. Essentially, is your position is ends justify the means no matter what, so you should use any ends that you have to be able to, or means that you have to be able to get to the end that you want, and we disagree with you there, I think, as a whole. So
We don't even know if we'll get to that end, right? Like we
Yeah.
don't know the after ever
Yes.
until it
Salute
happens.
George W. Bush. Remember, he has like the dark lurking shadow of Cheney, like behind him. And would you rather than have had Cheney like assume?
Pick another
presidency?
example. I was just using this
Or hopefully
example.
all of them
But
are
the point
secret
was
gays,
to get
and
rid
then we
of
can
the leader.
just one by one go down the line.
So
yeah, are we gonna
it's
make up gay? They're all gay. They're all trans. Like we're gonna put dresses in all their closets. Like that's the problem. Is that you're assuming that your means are going to get you to the end that you want, but that doesn't usually happen. And that's what the core problem is that
what is the end
torturing
that
the
I want?
torturers.
What is the end that I
Torturing the
want?
torturers
I
doesn't
think
actually
everyone's
help.
What is the end that I want?
That's just me.
Well, in this case, it's not the torture thing, but the outing gay and trans people is this assumptively you want gay and trans people to be more accepted in society, and you want conservatives to have less power to restrict gay and trans people in society. You want to reduce the power that conservatives have. And your assumption is that if you use any means that you have to get those conservatives out of power, that you're going to actually further the cause that you have of more acceptance of gay and trans people. But that doesn't actually follow at all.
No.
What is your goal then?
I've repeated it many times, right? It's the ability to organize. That doesn't directly translate into a society. And I've already said this. I've said this many times. I don't know if I guess people aren't listening.
Setting up political. You're like I'm going to cause political suicide to this person.
You're not
right?
listening to me.
Like
so
that's the
okay.
thing. No, but the thing is, Prime. I think about it this way, right? Think about it this way. Right now, the conservatives are doing the means justify the ends on a lot of this, and this is what they do. They've been calling Democrats pedophiles and necrophiles and baby, like, they've been saying the worst things about Democrats now. Like, and because being gay doesn't work anymore, family values doesn't work anymore. So they stepped it up a notch and started doing felonies and crimes and actually harms against children. Like, I just don't understand, where do we stop? Like, if the Democrats start taking on that same level, like, why stop at gay? Why not just go straight to pedophile? Why not go straight to murderer? Why not go straight all to those things? If we're just going to start making up shit about people,
I don't want to make up shit. I never said I want to.
You said it would have been okay though.
I said no, and that point with Jeff Sessions, I'm like, if you guys are already doing this, so like the situation you set up that I didn't set up is that someone took a picture and then like decided like, oh, this guy was gay and it was a mistake, and so they outed him. In that case, like, whatever, like, I'm fine. I don't care about the harm.
I do have a question, though. I do have a question. Are we
Some...
assuming in these cases, or just in general, like, can we rely, like, is there a way that we can 100% reliably out someone, or is it always speculative?
What do you mean by that?
Like, you know what it, so like, I think Josie kind of alluded to this, right? Like, if you had a picture that was taken at like a certain angle that just portrayed it somewhat like that, like someone's like on camera, like a guy having sex with another guy with a penis, it's like, okay, well, that's pretty cut and dry. But like in cases where we like is there any way to like verifiably confirm, or like that like the such and such like homophobic politician is gay, or like what, I don't know. I just wonder if there's that is something that someone in my chat actually brought it up. He said, has he thought about that you can't reliably
We've already talked about that, but we've literally been talking about that.
Yeah, as long as it does enough harm, it's fine.
But But so it's okay to be speculative as long as the end goal is just like removing from power, harm reduction. But like, would that, so are we saying that like then like salacious gossip that is set up, or maybe like it could be interpreted as one way or the other, but isn't necessarily true? We're okay weaponizing.
So this is what I was trying to answer before. Okay. So when you're talking about, so the situation that Josie specifically set up was that it was a mistaken situation, right? Jeff's, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I got your hypothetical mixed up, Josie. But you said Jeff Sessions goes into a gay bar and is not told by his friend that it's a gay bar, right? And immediately he freaks out. He's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna catch the gay," right? And he like runs out of there. And someone takes a picture, right? First of all, hilarious. And second of all, and then you're asking, well, in that case, where like apparently we were wrong, should it be used? But like we don't. At that point, we don't know, right? It's just a picture that seems to be confirming that he is part of the lifestyle, right? In that case, I'd say like it's fine that it was used in that situation, right? If it like, yeah, like it's fine. However, if there's on the other side, I'm not saying like just make shit up, right? Like, so if you know that it is like it's not real, one thing, I don't think that's a very effective strategy. Because if you don't have proof, they're going to ask for proof, right? So salacious gossip, I don't think it's going to work. And in fact, it's going to degrade other instances of trying to out people. So like, if you want to actually make this an effective tactic, it's actually best that it is true and you can verify it, right? It was
keep our
better.
powder dry with outing people. We don't want to out too many people. Just keep it dry.
No. Not outing too many. No, not the number of people. I'm saying that like when you're outing someone, it's actually best that it's true, because if it's not true, then the next time that someone else is being outed, and they're not going to believe you, like the boy crowded wolf type situation. So I wouldn't want that situation, because it would degrade the strategy. Sunny?
So I'm so lost in the sauce right now.
Okay.
So if you would, I'd love to like run through these and see like how this would work in action.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like the Mitch McConnell like scenario. Let's go with that.
Okay.
That like, okay, or I guess like in the like say that he's like really stopping like the equality bill, you know, like a meaningful thing that he is causing harm to like the LGBTQ plus community, and then it comes out that he is gay, right?
Trans.
And so, is that what we're doing now?
Yeah. It's got to be trans. It's not, because we talked about it. Because like gay is not going to be enough to.
Yeah. That's some.
The LGBT movement has been too successful there, and that like yeah.
Okay, so you find out that he's trans, and that you somehow get that information like 100% true out to the media, and like it's known he is outed. Can you explain to me like what good or just like what that would do, like what you believe that would do? Because I'm seeing a lot in my mind, a lot of offshooting possibilities here, and a lot of them are not good. And so I'm interested in like what you think is like, oh yeah, this is what'll happen. That's why I'm for it.
I feel like too, like a lot of, you know, the base that we're talking about in trying to get people to not vote for these people because of their identity just kind of follows along anyways. Like if we told everyone that Trump was trans, wouldn't they all be like, oh well, who cares, it's Trump, right?
Trump is something different. I say Trump is a completely different animal. I don't know if anything would work on Trump. I honestly don't know. I think if you caught him in a dress, I don't know if it would actually. In fact, wasn't he? Am I thinking of someone else? I might be thinking of Rudy Giuliani.
You're thinking of Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Rudy Giuliani. Okay, thank you. Fair enough. Rudy Giuliani likes to dress up in his clothing.
Who doesn't try on a dress once in a while?
Who doesn't try on a dress once in a while? And there's nothing wrong with that.
Especially with a nice breeze. Like, who doesn't like a nice breeze around your nether regions? Everyone does. It's wonderful.
Beautiful summer dress to a picnic.
What are they called? I think I had the name wrong. Is it like was it a daishiki one, like those African wraps that, you know, like male garments, right? I've never worn one. but like I've wondered about the breeze. It's got to be great. Like I've wondered about the breeze.
tell you.
Wonderful. I mean, listen, like that's why when even like I mean that's the whole picture of Ireland, Scotland are wearing the kilts, like they're super comfortable. In a lot of societies and like other like civilizations, like everyone wore skirts and it was just collectively accepted as like, yeah, skirts feel great.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't you wear
Why wouldn't you wear a
Not
skirt?
wearing pants, base. You should consider trying it sometime.
I'm trying it now,
Wonderful.
and it's great. So-
You heard it here first, folks. Prime does not wear pants.
Hell yeah. That's right, King.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
pantsless.
yeah.
King.
That's why he doesn't get up, by the way.
That's why I don't.
He sits
that's
there
exactly why
because
I
he's
don't
not wearing
get
pants.
them.
Prime,
It
you
helps.
have successfully outed Mitch McConnell, now known trans person.
Mhm,
What happens?
Okay. What hopefully happens, because it's a strategy that, like any other political strategy, there's no 100% strategies. So, what hopefully happens, is that all the hate that he has, and this doesn't work so well with Mitch McConnell. Honestly, it really doesn't work as well. But let's pretend that he is an evangelical, like Christian conservative who's been, yeah.
That is something where I would put it a timeout,
Yeah.
only because you mentioned the pastor or whomever
Ted
who
Haggard.
got outed. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the case,
Mhm.
but I do think there's something different there in the fact that he was outed in a Christian community, in a community that does look down upon gay people.
That's the point.
And I know the Republican Party. There's a lot of same fundamental ties there, like a whole lot. I know that, but I don't think it's the same like level of, oh, this person has done something against our belief, like against our doctrine, like with a religion, cast them out. I think that's a much more commonplace thing in practice for religion than politics.
So, well, actually, I don't think. So I think that's why again we switched it. I switched it to trans and not being gay, because at this point the Republican Party is they're very happy to parade their gay Republicans around, right? And say look how inclusive we are, right? But they have made a hate chapel, right? They built this hate chapel around trans people, trans individuals, and they built careers out of hating trans individuals. Again, why this doesn't work so well for Mitch McConnell, because this is not actually his thing. He doesn't actually give a shit about this. He'll use it for his advantage, but he doesn't actually care. But like, if there was, let's use just Republican X, right? Republican X, who's like,
who hates trans people.
Yeah, if they've done that, if their power base is based on their family values, their evangelical, that evangelical base, right? If it's built on them, then they're gonna reject them, right? That's just the way it is. That's how it works, right? That Christian forgiveness always disappears conveniently in these situations. So they're going to reject him if that's his purpose. He's relying to get elected, then he doesn't get elected again, right?
Okay,
sorry.
No, it's okay. I just basically, so like that's like you were saying, hopefully like that's the line that you're following of like outing this person as what they are, the thing that they direct all their hate towards and have their base that directs all their hate towards,
like,
and outing them as that, it does, like, it would dissolve that base. And I know you just said, well, when it comes to these things, like everything is like hopeful. We really have no way of knowing. And I guess my view of it is like on just like the other side of that is that I'm not convinced that it would result in them like having their base dissolved. I think that creating that precedent of outing people is more likely to cause harm in normalizing that behavior, especially in like the political sphere, in trying to destroy your opponents. I think that's way worse than like maybe their base will vote for someone else.
Normalized. It's already normalized on the right. It's already normalized on the right. That's what they built their hate chapel for. That's why this is effective strategy. Now, for the contrast that to the guy that I'm thinking of, and I have to look this up, right? Because this is a long time ago, so if I'm getting a detail wrong, then I do apologize. But going back to our wide stance spreader, right? He wasn't thrown out of office. I think he continued on his career after that, after he got caught. But if I'm remembering this correctly, if I'm not, I apologize. I'm not trying to deceive anyone. But if I'm remembering this correctly, he wasn't actually like, his power base wasn't built on like Christian crusading, right? And like the family values, right? Like he was just like, he's another one of those terrible Republicans, but like it wasn't his power base. So then in that case, it's not an effective strategy. Not all strategies are going to work equally for all individuals, right? This is why I'm saying for Mitch McConnell, it's not effective. So yeah, like, I don't know. Like, yeah.
So yeah, in this scenario we've created.
Oh my God.
That they are the thing that they're directing all the hate
You're
against.
welcome. You're welcome. If you want to look in your Discord chat, I created some nightmare fuel.
You beat me to it.
Did
I had FaceApp open.
My chat,
ants
my
look like.
So now you could show them, Alice.
Josie was so kind enough to give us, a vision of Mitch McConnell as a woman, and wow, okay.
The sad thing is that looks like Rachel Levine.
Would you do this
Like-
to us?
Yeah, she looks better. Like I think he looks like really nice. Like in
I know,
this,
she looks better.
he's actually really nice. Like I
Maybe
would
a little
say,
estrogen will do her some good.
yeah, actually, I think it would actually really work.
Michelle
I'm sorry, whatever.
She could
Michelle
use-
McConnell is much
she could
better
use
than Mitch
some-
McConnell.
Yeah.
Michelle McConnell,
I'll post a picture on stream. Yeah.
I stand Michelle McConnell.
It's actually
right,
really
right?
good. Hold on, let me see if I can
she
show
needs-
this to
needs
my
to live her.
stream.
life.
Hold on, let me see if this will work. All right, open original. Yeah, this is what she created. I think she looks pretty good. Looks like it's really nice.
Support her.
And I would want this person, right? I want her to be introduced to the world, right? Like, don't hide this, Mitch
Yeah.
McConnell. Like, don't, like, let her out. So
Ow.
yeah, I don't know. It was a really nice photo, actually. Good work on that. So, all right. Anyway, back to this.
Oh my
Yeah, I
goodness.
don't know. It's not bad. Yeah. All right. So
Oh my God, that's
Watch
my
out,
aunt.
Prime. Watch out, Prime
That's
your
my
neck.
fucking
Like
Oh,
she's
okay.
cute. Like she's cute.
I'll take it.
I know, right?
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
like,
She's
she's
like
a
a-
librarian.
Yeah.
I was literally
Am I-
just gonna say librarian. I was like,
Yeah.
she's like
In
a
another
nice-
world.
In another world.
Yeah.
in a better world, in
In a
the
better
better
world.
timeline.
And a better yes,
Yeah.
a trans Mitch McConnell is simply that's a better world. That's a happier future, right? Yeah.
Can we just talk about how
Just a
Mitch
better-
McConnell looks like a turtle?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so does Michelle
yeah.
McConnell.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. The
Totally.
turtleness is across gender.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Am I turtly enough for the turtle club? Come on.
Actually, not bad. Okay. So, all right. Well, I think we've we've reached an impasse at the very start of this, but like I feel like we've dug this hole to the very bottom. Hit paper dirt. All right. But all right. Thanks for that. So we'll continue on to our next topic. Before then, if you're enjoying this content, if you've just fallen into the stream and experienced this magic, magic brought to you by Josie here. If you're enjoying it, for more trans politicians, more future, hopefully trans politicians, right? Then follow the channel.
Michelle!
Hit that follow button and make sure the notification bell is on so you know I'm going live. Okay. So. All right, so yeah, hit that follow button right now if you haven't done so before. Yeah, okay, and also follow us on our social medias, Xplicit Social. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on or jump into our Discord and subscribe to our YouTube. We'll find our bots. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. All right. Oftentimes, the issue of women's trauma and safety is used to shape public policy. An example of this is the Afghanistan war. One reason why war advocates say that the US should continue its occupation is because of the women that will be protected. But is that a valid excuse? What about when the argument is made by people with a track record of ignoring women's pain in other areas? Is the pain of women just a convenient weapon to get a desired policy outcome? So I'm really curious what you all have to say about this. Start with Sunny for introductions.
I do hate when people just like utilize, just trauma to get across political ideologies. I don't have a lot to say on the Afghanistan example. I am a Canadian Zoomer. I'm so sorry. From what I've I feel like I've heard a lot about how like the occupation or the the soldiers being there, that the benefit that led to for Afghani women isn't just in the sense of like defensive, where soldiers being on the ground like equates to like less violence being enacted against them. I was under the impression that stabilizing that area with having those troops there doing what they do, but to stabilize the area made it so that it was able to, like, infrastructure was able to be put in place so that women were able to attend school and gain other rights. That was more of how women were being benefited. But that's all I got, so I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to say.
Okay, Alice, please.
Sure. So, yes, this is literally just a tactic used to just further support. This is just essentially concern trolling to some extent. Nobody really gives a shit about women. People who are advocating for war are not sitting there thinking, but think about the women. Think about the women. No, they're saying, think about the money. Think about how much money we can make from war. So I'm not really giving them very much line here. Mostly it's literally just about the very efficient money-making machine that war is. And this is just another good justification to continue said money-making machine of war. There's not really any real strides made for women that could not have been made without making war of this nature. So there's just really no argument you can make to say that this is a valid reason for why we are making war. That's not one of our reasons. It's just a justification that we're using because, hey, if we can get people to worry about the plight of their wives and daughters. We've actually had this discussion before, Prime, in another panel. We've actually talked about that, about how when men talk about rape, for instance, it's not until we start talking about their wives and daughters that people actually give a shit. And this is the same type of thing. It's like this sort of like just playing on that sort of that drive, I guess, a little bit, and it's not a real drive that people who are making war have. So
yeah, interesting. Thank you. Let's go to Maddie.
I think this is another example of using women as a way to justify a certain or push a certain policy view. Because if you look at those who are claiming this, I question when they say, one second, my fiance decided this was a great time to vacuum.
Okay. Well,
but yeah, so I look at, okay, well, if they really care about women's safety, what else have they done, or what else do they support that protects women? What else have they done? And what I see largely when this sort of thing comes up is that there isn't really a history of them supporting policies that protect women or are targeted towards women. So it seems to me like they're using the threat the idea that women are in harm's way as a way to justify whatever their agenda does. And I also just, I don't know, I struggle with the notion that any part of the military industrial complex, including our never-ending wars, protect any women. I'd love to ask all the women that have died as collateral damage from like air raids, whether or not they feel protected. But yeah, that's my position.
Okay. Josie, please.
So I've had this take actually recently when we were talking, not on your panel, but actually when I was having a conversation with Dylan, about
What?
the justification.
Another channel? I don't know what you're talking about.
Another channel, kind of big deal,
I don't. It doesn't sound familiar, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Anyways. Yeah, how dare I? He doesn't need any more marketing. He's doing fine. Anyways, we're having a conversation about like Afghanistan and talking about how a lot of times these warmongers and these war profiteers use women as like, well, you don't want to help the Taliban, do you? Don't you know what they do to the women? Or and like they use these tropes, yet in Saudi Arabia we arm them and we give them money, even though their human rights violations against women are absolutely insane. At a Trump rally the other day, they were actually booing the U.S. American team because they lost to Sweden.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things where it's like, and they try to herald women's sports, but yet the women's U.S. team is being booed and laughed at, and they are saying they're protecting women's sports and trying to restrict freedoms from those women. I think what was already said was absolutely right about the fact that these bombs are indiscriminate to women's rights. They completely drop them on all populations, regardless if there's women in the area. So the idea that they're trying to say, oh, but think about the women as they're literally dropping munitions on their head and their families, it just rings hollow. And so I've always had a rule of thumb. If somebody's talking about humanitarian aid or humanitarian reasons to go into a war, I always think twice, because there has to be another reason why. We don't do anything just for the sake of like the rights of another person. We barely do that in the United States. I could only imagine them saying, "Oh, we're going to do it in Afghanistan," when we can't even effing give women access to abortion. Like, give me a break. Like, it just makes it's laughable to me.
Okay. Thank you, Marjade.
Honestly, I don't have anything to add. I think you kind of hit everything that I was thinking of.
Amanda.
Yeah, so I agree it's a justification to like continue occupation, but I also want to highlight Afghani women that have been demanding seats at the table. And from what I've read and gathered, they do fear abandonment after years of, extraordinary gains in every area of public life. So what I've read is that since 2002, when the Taliban fell, so these are all the strides that have occurred. Okay, so millions of women, and this is as of 2019. So millions of women have voted in local and national elections. So sorry, let me back up just a little bit. So under the Taliban, there were no female judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, no women in media, security forces, no girls or female teachers in school. A few worked in medicine under strict circumstances. So now millions have voted. Schools and universities employ 68,000 women instructors, including 800 university professors. More than 6,000 women serve as judges now. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, police, and army personnel. Female journalists are over 1,000. And women entrepreneurs have invested over 77 million in businesses. So I agree, again, like I said, with everybody stating that, it's a justification because when do these people actually give a shit about women, right? But there is another side of a coin, that another side to this in regards to the the strides that have been made. So I don't have an answer, like always. I never seem to have answers to anything, but yeah, I don't know. Like everyone's answers here just kind of seem to like gloss over all the success women have had in Afghanistan over the last, what, is it 20 years? How many years?
Yeah, 20 years. 20 years. Yeah.
20.
So, I I wanted our friend Red Shaw to be here because this is the take that she has had, right? We've oh man, we've had fights. But so I'm going to try to take say what I think she would have said, right? She would bring up a lot of what Amanda's talking about. One, the actual strides that's taken place, and there have been strides certainly for women's progress, and saying that the harm is real, right? Like so when they say like the Taliban retaking control of areas, right? Like the harm that will be done for women, that's like not imaginary. So if that's the case, then why not use? Is it wrong to simply bring up something that actually seems to be a true statement, right? In terms of like what might happen to them. Yeah.
I also wanted to highlight the Taliban and their views have not progressed as their society has. So if they were to get back into power, women's rights would be completely gone.
My
Yeah.
question is, are we saying that it is directly a result of the US occupation there, or directly a result of the US presence there, that has led to those advances? Like I guess because I know we've had a bit of a limited presence in that region for a while now. Obviously, we've still had a presence, but it's been significantly reduced. Are we saying that like the advances that have been made in terms of women's freedom and women's rights in Afghanistan are directly correlated with us being there, or is that something that has happened just simply because that's the way like that region of the world is progressing? Like, I don't know. Because we certainly have had maybe an impact in terms of like physical security and like being able to prevent like potential terrorist cells from developing or transporting things, whatever. But when it comes to the actual like culture and legislative process within that country, has the US had much of an impact or like much sway? I don't know.
Culturally.
I don't know the answer.
Not culturally. But I guess my question is like, just because we've had positive outcomes in some ways doesn't mean that was one of our goals. Like, people can make this claim all that they want. There can be positive outcomes, but that's not what our goal was. Our goal was to control oil and control prices of oil. So it's just weird to me, I guess, that we would accept that narrative, right? Like, well, we're going to war so that we can better women. Like, that's not what our goal was. And it's not even at all fair to say that that's even part of our goals. Like, did we have a positive outcome for women? Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've definitely taken out a very, very regressive religious extremist organization from controlling much of Afghanistan. Yeah, that definitely happened. We definitely took them out of power largely. And yeah, that was a direct result of us being there. Yes, definitely. But was that our goal? Was our goal to further women's rights in Afghanistan? No. We didn't give a shit about women's rights in Afghanistan. We cared about oil prices and the control over the region and what their military was going to look like. We didn't give a shit about women's rights. And that's not what our goal was. And that's what this question is asking is it reasonable for somebody who is pro-war to hold the position of, well, we're bettering women's rights and that's why we're going to war? And the answer is no, it's not. That's not a reason that somebody can hold up and say, well, look, we bettered women's rights in Afghanistan. Yeah, and then immediately, the moment we pull out, the fucking Taliban comes back in and we're back exactly where we were 20 years ago. We're literally exactly back where we were 20 years ago. We made no progress. We changed nothing.
Supposed to be like training them, and like weren't we like, wasn't someone thinking like, oh, we're gonna have to leave soon, shouldn't we like make sure they're equipped to like handle things once we're not here?
Yeah, but that's not part of the
Wasn't
goal.
that like yeah.
The
Yeah.
government does hold, just to be clear, the government still holds control over a relatively large part of Afghanistan. You know, Afghanistan is not all under Taliban control, but the Taliban is taking back over a pretty large amount of land, of regions. And they're probably going to take pretty much a majority back over. The government in Afghanistan is not stable enough to hold control. So we're pulling out because it's not making us money anymore. And now we're back in the exact same spot we were 20 years ago, where the Taliban is taking control back over and, you know, winning. So I mean, and also, I'm not sure if anyone else is aware of this, but the Taliban is not like a scary, spooky terrorist organization that's going to kill everybody. They're actually, relatively speaking, well tolerated by the citizenship of Afghanistan. And that's part of the problem, is that we made no progress on the general population of Afghanistan. We did nothing. We literally forcibly put into power people who followed our like goals, and then the fucking Taliban got chased out somewhat, and now 20 years later we're back in the exact same position, except now the citizenship is like, fuck you, America, fuck you, current government. The Taliban's got what we want, so we're going to put them back in power. So we literally, not only did we make no progress, but we essentially gave the Taliban reason to seize control back over. Like we've
We did
made
not
no
think this
social
through,
progress.
did we?
No, this was not something that was thought through, because it wasn't a goal of bettering a country. It was a goal of money. It was a goal of oil. It was a goal of control over these resources. And it
Boosting
was reason.
Halliburton.
Yeah, yeah, it's control and resources and political power and military power and money. It's not a matter of rights. It's not a matter of bettering a country. It's not a matter of bettering citizens, you know, social structures, or it's nothing of that nature. It's literally money. And that's what my point is that yeah, we can say all these betterments that we did. We did better women's rights, but in 10 years it's going to be back to where it was, unless some big social changes happen there, and not from America coming in and whipping our dick out. Like, that's the problem.
But do we have a obligation now to continue the safety, even though that was not our intention? It did happen. And when, yeah, I guess.
We're gone. There is no, yes, I think we had the obligation, but we are gone. That story passed 2 weeks ago when we snuck out in the middle of the night. There is
Yeah.
literally nothing left for us to do there. We fucked up. We fucked up massively. We
Well,
made
and that's
major,
the-
like,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like what I think about. It's like, yeah, we were there for 20 years. For the first, whatever, 5 to 7 years, it was very much a war zone, right? We were like establishing our presence there. And a lot of people argue actually that like initial, like first sort of declaration of you know, a winning or whatever, or Afghanistan was at one point a success story about like the US going in, removing an oppressive regime, whether or not like you agree with the US sort of playing kingmaker in that case, but they went in and did that. And it just astounds me that after something like that, we did nothing to build rapport with the citizens so that like they looked at us more favorably or saw us as liberators versus I mean, that's hard to do, granted, when you're like bombing civilians routinely. It's hard to then like turn around and be like, no, but we liberated you. But it blows my mind that like this wasn't thought through, because what's the alternative? We just end up staying there forever? Wasn't the whole, like, I thought the whole reason that we were there was like so that we could train their military people, so we could empower and arm like the people there who are our allies to be able to handle things once we left. So like, what was the game plan? Were we just going to have a perpetual military presence in Afghanistan? Because like that's not a sustainable goal. I just wonder, like, what the hell were they thinking? like what was the long-term strategy here?
Okay, sorry. Josie, you have to go. Please go ahead, Josie.
Yeah. Um, so I'm going to talk about the fact that these topics are really hard because it's foreign policy. And as someone who's actually fought in Enduring Freedom and actually was on a ship that actually dropped bombs in Afghanistan, which is horrific, by the way, I'm not happy that I was involved in that. I it's really hard to say. Because I think we try, because if you look at international relations and you look at how we justify real power versus soft power, constructionalism versus liberalism versus realism when it comes to international relations, it's really hard to figure out where the data is coming from, who is saying these things that are going to happen. And one of the things I always get really worried about is the narrative, and this is no offense to anybody on the panel. This is just my take. Um, when I think about the fact that the second we leave, it's just gonna go completely back to crap. Like the second that we leave, like it's all gonna disintegrate. And I try to say that we should give more credence to self-determination for certain nations. The wars and our occupation is almost old enough to drink. That's how long we were involved in these wars. And there are people who are born that only knew of the wars, right? And the fact that we're stopping the Afghanistan is something new for like 18-year-old kids. Like, what? And it's like it's unbelievable to think about. So the reasons I bring these points up is these competing interests, because Alice is right. There's moneyed interests that are going to try to make the argument that, hey, the second we leave, it's going to cause regional stability, which is going to cost us economic power. Or there's other arguments that is like, oh, if we leave Afghanistan, we're going to leave it open to China to economically develop Afghanistan so they can continue their Belt and Road Initiative. And then it's going to help their economies, which is going to help, Russia and all of these type of things. And then there are the people who try to say, oh, we're there for humanitarian reasons, so therefore you need to buy my bombs, so therefore that you can protect women. And then there's people that are like on the NATO position, which is like, we need to let the Taliban and all of these governmental bodies in Afghanistan meet at the table without us so they can have some form of self-determination. And honestly, I'm with the latter. Is it horrific that there are like roving tribes that are like super aggressive and kill people? Yes. It's also really awful that we have roving tribes of white supremacists killing black people and trans women too. So there's gonna be violence. And it's really unfortunate. And I'm not an isolationist by any means, but it's time that we pull back, come back home, and see where the dust is settling. Because right now, the dust is still up in the air. Everything that we talk about in that region is purely speculation because every argument that I made is being made at the same time. Nobody knows what's actually going to happen once the dust settles. And unfortunately, there's got to be a point when a nation can do self-determination. And so that's my point of view, is like, pull out, see what happens, and let the region start sorting things out, because guess what? They're adults. These aren't children.
You say that they're adults, and they are adults, but I think, again, just talking about what the topic we're talking about. The topic we're talking about was whether did we go to war to like better women's rights and stuff, and we've pretty much settled so far, I think, on no, absolutely fucking not. We did not. Um, and the self-determination concept, like, look into what the Taliban is doing and look into how the Taliban works right now in Afghanistan. And Josie, maybe you're already aware of these things, right? I'm not assuming anybody doesn't know these things, but if you look into how the Taliban works right now, they're not just like this scary terrorist organization that comes in and fucks everybody up. They're pretty socially accepted right now. they generally better the quality of life for the people in the regions that they control right now. And that's part of the problem. If
I
you want to
made
put
I
quotes
made that I made that take once on a panel, and I swear I was gonna get canceled for it.
it's so
Like the
stupid because
idea, it's like the idea that like Hospilad and like all of these other organizations in the Palestine and stuff like they don't they forget that like the terror like it's a political group
Yep.
like NATO has been talking about negotiations with the Taliban and the regional bodies of Afghanistan for so long, but the only reason they don't want to get there is because they know if the Americans are in the room or if NATO's in the room, they're just going to be steamrolled and they're not going to be listened to. They don't even want to talk to Americans and talk about the plans that they have. So I want to see that. And Alice, yeah, you're right. And when you make that take, and I agree with it, that we need to see what the organization has evolved in 20 years. Like the organization's basically been bombed into oblivion, and we don't know what their political structures are because they've been so hidden and afraid. So what is their political power? We don't know yet. And have they have a history of violence? Absolutely, but so does colonialism. So we
yeah.
need to be able to figure
Mhm.
this out, right?
I just want to address like people in Prime's chat are like, Alice is wrong on this. And then they're like talking about how the Taliban is like vicious to the people it captures and stuff. No fucking shit. Yes, absolutely. The citizenship doesn't give a fuck about that because they're literally the people living in a fucking desert, like eking out a living. Like the Taliban comes in, takes over control of a region, and gains political popularity because that's how it works.
Thing that cards do in
Yes.
South America, because
Yes.
actually during the pandemic, one of the only sources of actual like community support wasn't governments in those smaller countries, it was cartels. Like that's how they gain political favor, is they provide assistance and aid when others don't, to people who have otherwise kind of been marginalized or forgotten. Like this isn't something new. That's how so many otherwise vicious and violent organizations are still like popular by the people, among the people. It's a pretty common, it's actually a really common tactic.
Yeah. So I think uh, hmm, uh, um, going back to what Josie was saying before about that damage to be done. So, I mean, are we saying that it's kind of okay? Well, not okay, but just that it's an acceptable cost. What might happen to those women and those girls? That their rights will be rolled back, and there might be retribution against those who who've tried to advance women's rights, right? So I'm sure there's civil rights um, individuals in Afghanistan who've been pushing to move things along, right? But if the Taliban takes control, let's say, let's just for example, let's pretend they take 100% control of the country, which is not guaranteed, not a guaranteed thing. But if that does happen, right, then those people are going to be killed. Is that is not that's just an acceptable loss then?
I mean, more than this is a stat that was just shared in my chat. More than 71,000 Afghan and Pakistani citizens have lost their lives over the course of 20 years to like military related violence and like violence directly correlated with the occupation. Again, it's hard to justify our presence as like solely to protect women when that's the harm that's just a fraction of the harm that we've caused to the women of that region, let alone the long-term effects of trauma. And watching your country be occupied by a foreign force, and in a lot of cases losing family members, community members, people they know and love, to senseless violence or air raids. It's so, yeah, again, like my heart breaks because I don't know the right answer for how to protect those people, but I also know it is unsustainable for the United States to remain there. And I don't think that those who claim that we need to specifically to protect women, I don't think they're like, I don't believe them. Like, I don't believe that that's why they want to stay there.
Is
So I'm
it?
like, well, like, what else have you done in that country to like specifically protect the women besides just saying, oh, but we're preventing the Taliban from taking power? It's like, great. Well, like, what have you done to ensure that the Taliban wouldn't take long-term power, like for the long term? Like, what else did you do?
But so you said something, saying that it's unsustainable for the U.S. to be there forever. My friend Red Charlotte, who is listening in chat, lovely Red Charlotte.
I love Red Charlotte.
Yeah, she's great. But saying that it's unsustainable, she would say, well, actually, it is, and that we stay everywhere, right? Like everything we go, we
Which
set
I
up
don't
a
agree
base.
with either, but yes,
I don't
we
agree with
are
it.
in a lot of places.
Yeah. So why can't we just stay there? Like, why
But we're
can't?
not in those places as an occupying force. Like we are, like where we are in South Korea, it's a military base, but it's because we do joint exercises and joint training in collaboration with the South Korean military. Same thing in Germany. I've had a few close friends be stationed there. So I think that's the difference, is that like, and one could argue, I suppose, that the military presence in Afghanistan is not necessarily an occupying force. We are just doing this in collaboration with the Afghani military. But like, I think that argument has some shaky grounds as well. And I think that's where the distinction is. It's not just that, oh, we have a big military base in Afghanistan where we do joint exercises with like a military ally. It's like, no, we're an occupying force, which is patently different. So
Deans. So another thing to also know is the point that I made earlier, and somebody in my chat highlighted it as well, is the trauma of war. The war torn countries that these women are all dealing with for a generation. The fact that young women didn't get to go to school because their schools were not accessible because of war. Like there are so many war crimes that were going on because it was war. So there's like so much damage that America is directly responsible for the trauma of war itself. And so for me, it's just really rich when people are like, I'm dropping bombs for women. It's like, what? Like, and it's like occupying for women. It's like, is that what the women really want? Like, or they just want a stable economy to raise a family and actually thrive in their own communities like we do. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just, again, like, I know when I was in when I before I joined the Navy, I remember I was a sophomore in high school when 9/11 happened, and I remember very vividly the news media and the stories that were being shared. It's one of the reasons I joined the military, because I was brainwashed by the propaganda. And one of the things is we're going to go in there because they're backwards, because they don't know how to treat women. They don't treat kids well. Like there's stonings, there's slashings, and not only are we going to go and stop Osama bin Laden, right? We're going to go and do all these things, but we're also going to liberate the people of Afghanistan from their backwards ways. I remember all of those type of things. And I remember when I was in the military, when we used to talk about the dehumanizational language that we used to talk about. And so I remember very keenly. But it was all a lie. It was all a lie. We caused more damage, and now our treasure, we spent all of our treasure and blood in these wars for nothing.
But
And it's bad.
the people who the people who live in the areas controlled by the American forces, aren't they more or less off, except for the ones who, aren't they more or less living in peace, right? Like that we got rid of that we got rid of the Taliban, right? So like you're talking about the
I mean,
trauma. So you're talking about the trauma of war, right? But if the Taliban start retaking areas, well, that's going to involve a lot of violence any which way. So it seems like we're re-traumatizing a new
I mean,
generation rather than holding on to what we have. So go ahead, and then after that, I'll go to
well,
Amanda.
and then you go to Amanda. Well, how safe do we feel in the over militarized neighborhoods of our communities? Because it's an occupying force. There's the idea of trauma of an occupying force being in your area where you have no control, where they're armed to the teeth and they've been known to kill indiscriminately. That's not a peaceful life to live. That is not a world that I mean, think about it. Like our neighborhoods are over militarized. Think about how we feel when jackbooted thugs go running through our neighborhood streets. We don't like it. How do you think the people of Afghanistan have been having to deal with that for their entire generation of time? Like that is so much. So I think that's an illusion. The idea that it was like peaceful was something that we enforced strictly. And there was no arguments. I don't see that as peace. I don't see occupation as peace. I don't care if there's not one bullet fired. That's not peace. That is occupation, that is power, that is authoritarianism, that is colonialism. And you know as well as everybody here that colonialism sticks and has lasting power. The people of Afghanistan are going to deal with the scars of the US occupation for 100 years. Like, and just like we deal with the scars, just like any nation deals with the scars of colonialism. And so the idea there is no peace. It's fake. It's not peace until the governing land makes it so. It's just, I don't know. It's just an illusion.
Yeah,
Amanda.
I yeah, I guess I just wanted to bring up that um especially women in Afghanistan were definitely traumatized prior to our involvement, not negating or taking away responsibility of the trauma that occupation and war has created, but these women essentially had absolutely zero rights. Like they could only go to school until like 5th grade and only learn certain things. They were forced, to wear burqas and had to cover up their bodies, and literally like couldn't work, didn't have jobs. And like I said, that this is stuff that I've been reading today after I got the topic, but it just seems like we're still negating or like ignoring all these voices from everything that I've read of people hoping that America still continues to keep Taliban accountable. And like from what I've read, they went just over the last 2 weeks. The Taliban has went from a quarter of land ownership to 1/3, and the people within those areas are very concerned if they're even going to be able to graduate or maintain going to school, if they'll still have equal rights.
I wonder what can you send over what like if there have been articles or something where that's been reported, because I would like to check those out, but I also wonder just how selectively like those stories have been shared, or like I don't know. I would wonder if you ask the like average person on the street in Afghanistan, or like just in Afghanistan, what their opinion is about the United States military having such a strong presence there, whether they see it as a positive or a negative that we're leaving and allowing them to have their own like self-determination or forge their own future. I just wonder.
Yeah,
I wonder. Yeah, because I would like to check those out.
yeah, no, I mean, I just typed in Google American
Okay.
occupation in Afghanistan to protect women's rights, and there's articles up like from the New York Times, like a whole bunch of different NPR,
Mhm.
uh, The Hill,
Okay.
yeah, just a whole, yeah, that's like all I typed in and then just started diving in. So again, I'm not I don't know a
It's-
lot about foreign policy,
it's
so I
preli-
just researched it today.
Yeah, it's preliminary work there for you. That's no problem. So okay, I'll bring that up later. That's fine. So though I do want to get all your opinions on this. So Sunny, I'm not gonna let you hide there in a corner, looking radiant, right?
Think about Afghanistan. I'm sorry.
But I just wanted to ask, like, the question that, morally, like, understanding that the Taliban will do some pretty heinous shit when they get back in power, is that a reason to stick around, right? That women's pain, whether it's being weaponized in a cynical way or not, right? If the information is true as to what the Taliban might institute on once they get in power, is that in itself a reason why the U.S. and Canadian forces too, right? I think you guys have an army. Should be there.
It's like 3 dudes. It's
like-
only like 3 dudes and like a bear. I think it's a Steve ask to well, for America especially with your global hegemony, to intervene in countries where there isn't adequate women's rights or there is harm being done against women, because that's many countries. And I get really lost in this topic because there's so many views from so many people on, like, how bad is the Taliban? How good is the Taliban? Like, how did the Afghani people feel about the Taliban? Because I have no idea. Like, actually no idea. All I can do is listen to people on Twitch and read articles. But and so, like, I mostly am here to just really critique the weaponizing of women's suffering, or the women being in danger, to push public policy, especially when it's policy that is for another country that's going to affect their citizens, like, and so severely as war does. I think that's a lot for America to say, is like, as that we're gonna do so good in your country. We're gonna make it so good for women. You need us there to make it so good for women. Like, I just have a lot of questions.
Make America so good for women.
Well, I'm
Would
working
that
on
be
that.
nice?
Baby steps. But okay.
Right.
So go ahead, Amanda. Did you hand up? Amanda, do you hear me?
Did we lose her?
You're oh god, you're being very
Oh,
expressive,
no.
but we do not hear you, Amanda. There we go. Try it again.
Yeah, I agree, Red Monkey, because sorry, I was talking to my chat about how my
Very-
doctor just said I have to self-isolate for 10 days.
Very interesting
just in
person
case.
called Red Monkey. I'm sure they're
Red
making great
Monkey,
points there.
Red Monkey.
Red Charlotte.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Amanda, do you hear us?
Are you muted, Amanda?
Yeah, we don't hear you right.
She's not muted on
Yeah,
Discord.
we don't hear you, unfortunately, friend.
Amanda, I'm gonna send you a microphone. I have an extra microphone that's the same as mine. I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm not sure if she hears us, but okay. But anyway, we love you, Amanda. We'll get back to you. Or do whatever you did before and fix it, okay? Because I want to hear from you. But so I guess my question is, this question wasn't actually explicitly about the Afghanistan war. As I framed it, I just used it as an example. But there are other examples of this. Saying that women are facing trauma, some sort of trauma, and so another action needs to be taken, right?
The thing that came to my mind was, like, the bathroom bills. That it was a lot of, like, who's gonna be in women's bathrooms, and that's, like, what was always cared about. And then, of course, it also came down to, like, well, think of the kids. And I think they're in pretty similar spheres of, like, well, think of the women, think of the kids. Like, that, like, there's a level of disempowerment of these groups, and, like, I mean, and definitely for kids, it's like you can speak for them. They're not in politics. And, you know,
Mm.
there's that's, you know, that's kind of how I feel with all the like, well, think of the kids thing. I think that's often weaponized to get across people's ideology because it can easily be weaponized. Um, for like in the case of using women for this, I think that it's that people do it because women are disempowered to a degree that they don't have the same positions of power to like make their voices heard, and like these are the issues that we see fit. This is like our trauma and like what we want to be done about it, and that's often people speaking for women and like for their danger, you know.
Mm. I did see the parallel, or I also saw the parallel with the bathroom bills, how the protection of women is always used as like a convenient excuse to just push whatever like bigoted policy they want. And I'm not saying like saying they want to stay in Afghanistan like is bigoted necessarily, but I'm saying that using women's safety as justification feels extremely suspect.
And I feel like
As like
crimes against women are often viewed as worse than the same crimes against men. You know, when it's the same abject suffering that were to occur, you know?
Well, I mean, it goes all the way back to the infantilization of women, like putting women on
mhm,
a pedestal. We can't take care of ourselves, and like the
damsel
idea
in
that we need to be
distress.
protected, right?
Hmm.
So I mean, it goes all the way back from women and children first, and like women can't be rulers because they're emotional. I mean, it's just the infantilization of like women are incapable of like running their own world or their own faculties, and they need something from the outside to make sure that their world is this perfect little place, make sure that we are so safe in this little glass porcelain world that's just going to shatter the second we're not given any difference.
Yeah, don't
So
try to
yeah.
leave that world. Don't try to leave it. Nope, you gotta
Yeah.
stay like nice and quiet and protected. Otherwise, you might get hurt. You're right. It's a totally. They do the same thing with children, where when it's not
Mhm.
protecting women, it's like, oh, but someone please think of the poor children. Um, as it's a red herring.
It is a red herring, and it's easy to like do that, right? It's easy to just
Mhm.
say, "Oh, these women, they're in danger," and no, and of course we don't want women to be in danger. Of course we don't want to be, in a place where our human rights are being violated every day. But the idea that we are that whole notion, that meta idea around it can be very toxic and can push policy through. So when we're talking about the trans bills, like not letting, trans women into like women's shelters, for example, because of the predator, or women's prisons or women's bathrooms, that's all trans predator defenses, right? Those are all like, oh, watch out for the transes, they're going to get your women. When you're talking about the sports athlete bans, oh, watch out for the transes because they're going to crush your little girls in sports and take away their
The other
victories.
one that's like, oh,
Yeah.
we care so much about women's sport, like
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then if you go into the trans healthcare stuff, it's about protecting children from making decisions before they're ready, so therefore we're protecting the children. Every single one of those arguments are based in influence it, like not allowing children are precious and like you can't nothing can be done with them. They're just like these little automatrons until the age of 16, and then they're like, oh, I'm awake, which is really really interesting. And then the women stuff, so it's just like these arguments have been used from the beginning of time, since women and men have had a unequal power dynamic, and that's what they're going to continue to do to justify their means.
Is it wrong though to want to take steps to protect women and children? So you brought up like the women and children first line, like evacuating a boat or something, right? Um, is that not a good impulse, right? To say that we're going to load up um the women and children, that we're going to make sure they're okay, and
It
then everyone else comes afterwards.
I mean, that's a tough one, right? Because you wanna give people the ability to live and survive, but like the idea that like men and like all these people are just completely valueless at this one moment in time, like I just I've never liked that sentiment because it just makes me feel like, oh, I guess I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me because I don't know. It's
So
like a social standard that we all kind of agreed was the right thing, but that's a
so
tough one.
I don't like
Mm.
that social standard.
I don't
I guess
either.
the way that we always think of it is like sinking ships, right? And if I'm not wrong, that wasn't actual like a maritime rule. It was just that it was a social a thing that just started happening for whatever reason. And the reason was because that's the social idea is that, women first, like women and children first. And
Mhm.
so the thing is that it's like I'm yes and no on the question because I do think like children first when and like let's like thinking ship example, right? Because like the those kids being on the ship, it's because they were there with their parents. It's usually not the kid be like, and that children are just under the guardianship of older people. That's an instinct that we have is to save children first. That is like a very human instinct, and I do see value in that. And that being a social thing that we all feel the need to do. For the women part of like that women get priority over men, not a fan of that. I don't actually see what meaning that has except in uh like a world in like a social consciousness that believes that women are somehow more important than men or should be prioritized over men just to live, and I don't I don't believe in that, I don't think that that's, and this is actually something that you have to cover in biomedical ethics is triage, and all the different ways. And it would be considered triage, getting people to escape from a boat. And gender shouldn't really come into play in triage like that. I know that typically people bring it down to like the like apocalypse setting of like, okay, but what if we have to like populate the world and all that? I don't think we're anywhere near that. And like save the Titanic, that wasn't their
Mhm.
concern either. For sinking ships, that's not the concern
Am,
either.
am I the one guy who makes it out? I was like, oh, it's
Yeah.
my job. I mean, I didn't want to have to do it, but
As long as you're not the captain.
yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
the thing is, like, and someone in my chat basically said that it hasn't happened a lot in history for like women and children first in boats. Like Titanic's a good example. But I'm now thinking as a sailor, I'm like, wait, I wouldn't want to get on a ship that doesn't have enough boats for everybody, just in
Mm.
case there's an emergency. So
Mhm.
a lot of times, like Mary, like that, like the Titanic broke some major laws by not having a boat for everybody, but they were so cocky about like it being unsinkable. They were just like, why are we having boats on a ship? Like, where this ship can't sink. So that's kind of why they cut some corners there. So I guess at the end of the day, like Ugly Pie is absolutely right about children. Like, yeah, I would gladly sacrifice my life for a child. That's just what I'm gonna do. It's like, oh, here you go, I'm done. Like, that's just how it would be. Yeah, right. And so that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, like I think the bigger arching problem is that women in society are seen as weak and helpless and that we need to be protected, and they use that as a justification to do heinous things.
But women, the reality of the situation is that women are more likely to be victimized, right? Like, I mean, we know this. We talk
Well,
about this
that
all the time,
but that
right?
but that's not like guaranteed. That's society being shitty. Right? Like in a vacuum, like women and men wouldn't be just like why does it have to be that way?
Yeah,
It's socially constructed already that we're going to be abused in some way in
I,
some setting, but
I,
like everything being equal, we would be fine.
I agree. but everything isn't equal, which is the problem, right? This is why we talk about all these social issues, because everything isn't equal. We live in a society, right?
Right, but I don't want to be
What?
considered a damsel in I don't want to be considered a damsel in distress. Like, I'm a badass woman. I can fucking protect myself and get my own rights in a lot of ways too, though.
I'm sure
with support and allies and other people around me.
Josie,
But you know what I mean?
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you're a very capable woman, you know, when you're in the military and all that. I'm sure you're actually very capable. But for a lot of women, you know, they are more vulnerable. So,
What do you mean by that?
well, they're more vulnerable to being preyed upon by like predatory men. I mean, like we start with that.
Why? What do you mean by that, though? Are you just saying like we're frail and tiny and they're just like
No,
ready to be victimized?
no, I'm not. I don't know why you're putting these
So,
words in my mouth.
that's what I
I don't know why
mean.
you're
Like,
putting these
what
words
do
in
you
my
mean
mouth.
by that? No, because it's important, right? Because
Yeah.
when you use words like that when you're identifying or describing women,
Okay.
it can make it seem like we're kind of like weak and like already predisposition to being weaker and more vulnerable to assault.
I'm saying that within our society that women make easier targets, right? Like, let's take out physicality, but physicality is a thing. But take out physicality, like in our society, we don't have the protections for women that we need, right? For instance, the response, the punishment for victimizing women so often is not the same as doing a gender neutral crime, right? Like we know these things. We talk about these things all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so if women, and for other reasons too, right? But if women are are easier to victimize, right? Then if that's the case, and we have to agree that's the case. If we don't agree that, I mean, I just told you what I meant. Did you not?
I know, but it's not clear because you're saying easier to victimize because of the social things in place.
Yeah, the social things, because we live in a society.
I
Like,
know we live in society, but like there's a difference between being victimized by buying a pink razor and paying 10 extra cents versus being victimized and going to the club and being raped.
Yeah, the rape thing.
So that's why I need to know what is the predeterminate that makes women more easily to be victimized, and what victimization are you talking about? Because it's such a huge topic, Prime.
Okay,
Yeah.
what form of trauma that women suffer that we've talked about plenty of times before? Which trauma would you like to pick? And then we can dissect
but I would
why.
not say that those are innate.
I didn't say they were innate. I've said multiple times they're not innate. I said this is because we live in a society.
I know we live in a society, but I want to know exactly. Like, I guess maybe I'm being a little bit too brutal. Maybe I'm being a little bit too debate girly on this. But I'm just trying to think here, like, because the claim that you're making, it can be can be taken out of context in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Like when you say that women are more likely to be victimized,
Yeah.
that statement alone is almost like of a matter of fact. And I don't know if that's a matter of fact.
Okay, so we don't have statistics saying that women are more likely to deal with sexual assault, at least outside of prison, right? We don't have statistics.
We do have those statistics.
Okay, so that's
we do
an
have
example.
statistics that women. Yeah, but then that statistic, is that a reflection on like men's behavior, or is it like, so that's what I mean. It's like it's a hard question to say because the claim is so loaded, right?
I don't.
And maybe somebody else can maybe clear it up for me.
Well,
Because I think it's dangerous to say that women are just going to be victimized.
I think that maybe like the words are getting a little caught up here. I think what Prime was mostly interrogating is like, where is that line between advocating for women and for issues that harm women versus weaponizing weaponizing
Those
that harm
vulnerabilities.
that harm against women to push policy, right? Like the weaponizing versus like advocating for, and it is a fuzzy line. And like
Yeah. For example, like the idea of like the victimization of trans women on cis women, right? Like the idea that because women are more vulnerable because of a penis in the room, it's going to like now put that woman under threat because she can't protect herself in that space against a trans woman.
Would you like me to simply reverse this so we can get past this point? Like saying that, okay,
Yeah.
that men are more likely to victimize. Would that be better? And then we could move past this issue? And maybe, I don't know. Does that make more sense to you? I don't know.
I wouldn't want to make that claim against men either.
Okay.
I think my problem is the absolute.
Oh, no,
What is
that's
our
the
contention
absolute.
here?
I'm just trying to move past like the point.
Okay, so my
lost in the
contention.
This is not the
here,
contention.
I'll give you the
This-
contention. I'll give you my contention.
Okay.
My contention is against Prime's claim,
Okay.
which was the claim that women are more likely to be victimized. And what I'm saying is that language of this assumed victimization complex of women in general as a whole allows people to weaponize our vulnerabilities against us in the end.
But
What?
So for example, trans women are said like cis women are used as a cudgel to not allow trans women into spaces because of predatory reasons, because women are more likely to be victimized in that sexual way. And the same goes for like cis women competing against trans women because they don't want boys, which is their words, to compete against cis women because it would be unfair. So they're protecting them from being crushed.
okay.
Right.
Okay, but
So I'm using the language that these women are so vulnerable to the trans women because of the language of vulnerability and the infantilization of women not being able to protect themselves.
But it's not a matter of women not being able to protect themselves. Women can protect themselves. It's a matter of statistical significantly, males victimize other people at a much higher rate than females. That is a
That's true.
statistical, that is data that we can prove to you.
That is
So
true.
I'm just
But
confused
we
here.
can't use that data. We can't use
Not
that
at an
data to
individual level.
justify.
Yeah.
Right, but we
We're
can't
talking about
no,
statistics.
I'm saying you can't use that data to justify men if you change the definition, right, of men being in women's spaces, and then they say, "Oh, it's trans women," and they're
Yeah.
going to try to use those same
But we're not
statistics
trying to justify
against
that.
We're not
us.
trying to do that.
I'm not saying we are. I'm
Yeah.
saying that the language of that can be very dangerous because it's being used against women.
We agree. That's what we're trying to examine is the rhetoric in of itself and like how that rhetoric is used. Like that's the whole point of the conversation.
I don't know. I just say, like, for example, like a woman would be told to not wear a short dress to a bar because she has a higher chance of being victimized for doing that, which is not.
No.
That's. I mean, you wouldn't do that.
No. I know, and I agree with you. But like,
yeah.
I agree with you. That's how the rhetoric is used. The rhetoric is used.
Maybe I watered down the topic too much and I've gotten everything muddled. I apologize if that's
No,
the
that's
case.
okay.
I think it's actually just gotten real semantic. I think you're kind of all on the same side here. There's just little words that are changed. That like so the fact of the matter is that women are victimized more, right? Like that's what the statistics show, that they are victimized more. I think maybe where it got a little muddled up was in the prescription of women being more likely to be victimized, which is a conclusion you could come to. I'm sorry that this like light spear is like coming right
it's
through.
it's a halo around you, revealing you to be the angel that you are. Okay, so go ahead.
Try to beat me back up.
Makes me look like beautifully ethereal.
Yeah, it's looking good. No, you're looking good. It's fine. Please go ahead.
It's so warm. I'm so sweaty. But that making that conclusion that women are more likely to be victimized from like the data that women are more victimized. That can get a little fuzzy, because saying that I think it's correct. Like, hey, the data shows this, so therefore it's more likely that that's like what's going to happen. But that the statement in and of itself to say that women are likely to are more vulnerable to victimization, or likely to be victimized, that I think that's what Josie
So
was speaking.
I'm trying to understand this.
I
Okay.
know,
No, no,
it's
no,
kind of just
I'm trying to,
rhetoric
and
critique.
I don't want to be dismissive of like your concerns, Josie. I want to be clear. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to understand them.
I'm running like a crazy K right now.
Okay.
It's like what is like a German critique of language and why we have debates and like how language matters. It's like a very meta conversation about the words that we use can actually cause harm.
Yeah. No.
So the idea that all like most women are vulnerable to abuse or victimization can create a greater opinion that all women are vulnerable or most
Yeah.
women are vulnerable, therefore they need to be
Yeah.
protected.
Okay.
That's the critical argument that I'm trying to make.
But
in the
yeah,
critique.
but that's what we're literally trying to examine here
Yeah,
with this
I know,
argument.
I like it. I like that. It's a very
And my
complex
friend,
argument. I really love the high level of this argument. I love
sure.
it.
And my friend Joe, the Silly Series, who's a wonderful, a beautiful human being,
I love Joe.
she has made this point before. So she's talked about how that language is used to restrict women, right? And similar to I think what you brought up, like the bar example, right? And then and like okay, so an example of this would be what happened in the UK recently, right? Where that how was it? It was a security guard or a cop or whatever, right? He like I think he killed a woman or
Off-duty Metro Police officer.
yeah, yeah. He like he victimized some woman in some way, and they were looking when in the process of looking for this person. The police went around town and said, "Well, all you women folk need to stay inside." Right? And it's like, oh, rather than like directly tackling the issue, it's like, well, to protect these women, we're going to hide them away because you're more likely to be victimized. If a man had been victimized that way, they would have never responded that way. They have never told, "Hey, man, you should stay inside." Like would have never been the case, right? So they use the language of victimization to end up like restricting the movement of women and actually re-victimizing them, by protecting them, right? So like I hear you, right? And that's just what we're trying to examine. So that's what we're trying to get at. So like when I say that I'm not saying when I was like throwing those statistics around, it's not that I'm first of all saying that each individual woman that is predictive of like Maddie's the course of Maddie's life, right? That these statistics exist, and so this is predictive of what Maddie will have to face. You know, little Maddie will have to face as she's growing up. That actually doesn't tell you anything, right? But we're just trying to examine this on a societal level and how this is used. So yeah.
Somebody wrapped up my argument in a really good way, which is it causes harm by defining women, not defining the circumstances of women. It's the idea of we're starting with the woman instead of talking about the circumstances that women live in that put them in that position. And that's where I think that's where my argument stems from, is the idea of starting from the vulnerability of women and working outward rather than working inward to alleviating that vulnerability in the first place.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Has given
Okay.
me a lot to chew on.
No.
That line.
That was
I hear you. Go ahead, Amanda, please.
yeah, that was much better stated than anything that I did last night. But that is kind of what I was trying to get around in that entire debate. That which we were talking about sex workers and the porn industry, and it was just constantly being framed with everything coming in wrong with the woman. And like at one point, even last night, I stated, I like hit me, and I'm like, the problem is you guys, like internally, like y'all need to figure that out.
Well, that's what I said before, though, about that
Yeah.
maybe men being the ones to more likely victimize, or having society set up in such a way that women like don't have protections, don't have legal protections, or even if they do have legal protections, like the cops like don't take women seriously, right, in their pain, like the movie discussed, right? So yeah, we could talk about it in that way. But I mean, so. But again, the point of the conversation is talking about like how women's pain is utilized, weaponized for various purposes. So that's why we're examining exactly this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
A-
Right.
And that's what this whole thing was about, and that's why I think and I'm actually, like I said, I'm getting a COVID test tomorrow. I'm not feeling great. Like
Oh, I'm
I'm gonna
sorry.
have a breakthrough. I already know. Like we
Oh,
have to
you're
quarantine for
okay.
like 10 days already. It's like it's bad. I'm vaccinated too.
Oh, thank God.
But anyways, yeah. So I just wanted to critique the conversation and the words used because I think we can make a stronger argument if we start from the outside in than going inside out. In that particular way of starting with the woman's vulnerability is, I think that's a dead end because
You're
the system is what made us there, put us there.
you're just saying to be descriptive, not prescriptive. You're
Yeah.
saying that's all you're saying. You're literally just saying statistics show this. That doesn't mean that this has to be true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I
Agreed.
don't think anyone would have argued that. I think that's
Well,
literally just
the way it came out originally was the opposite. It was because it was like talking about women are more likely to be victimized, and starting from
which
that point of
they
view,
are.
right?
Statistically,
But
that's
then
accurate.
I get that, but like the idea of starting with the like, oh, women are more likely or more vulnerable, because the word was vulnerable, because Prime did say like women are
Women
more vulnerable.
are currently more vulnerable in society, and statistics show that, prove it with data,
Right,
that
but
women
I'm not.
are the class in society that are more vulnerable right now.
I get
And
it,
there's other classes that are more vulnerable than other classes. That's
but
true.
the way that the society has tried to prevent that is by the conservativeship of women, putting them in long dresses, making sure they only have one
It's
partner to
putting the blame
keep
on
them
women.
away from the keeping them away from the world. Don't let them go to bars at night. Like those are the ways that they used to restrict it for women to not be in vulnerable
I,
places.
I,
But that's
And
not
and but that's how
that's
they
not
Yeah.
used
about
those arguments
vulnerability.
before. No, they would say, no, women are vulnerable going out
Who's
at night,
they?
but don't let them go. Like the
Well, that's
old
just like the
school, like
It's not
prevailing
Prime.
Christian.
message that we
No, it's
hear.
not
Like,
prime, but I'm just saying those are the
Sorry,
arguments that
Maddie.
lead to those arguments. Go ahead, Maddie.
no, I was saying like I think the issue, at least for me, I think I similarly to Josie, is the choice of descriptor as vulnerable, and that as I maybe like a justification for why women should be treated differently in terms of, like, if we want to use the Titanic question, right, about like, oh, if you were on a sinking ship and who gets priority on the lifeboats, or who it when the language used is they're just more vulnerable without it being qualified with like something specific, or saying that like they are like more likely to be the targets of violence by men or by whatever. Like, without that qualification, I think the image that it evokes and the regular kind of association people draw is something that is derivative. Like, it derives back to this notion of like the weak
but
women. And I'm not saying that's fair. It's
no, no, no.
fair. That may not
But
be
no,
what
the
someone
point.
intended, but without a qualifier.
This is what I'm trying to say.
I know it's not the point. I
No, no,
know it's not the
no,
point,
no, no, no,
Prime.
no.
I
But like,
know.
but no, no. I don't. I'm not sure if that's being getting across, because this is what we're trying to examine: is the rhetoric that you're talking about. That's why I'm using that rhetoric, because it's the rhetoric we're talking about, which is why, right, I brought up like the whole point of women's tears, talking about, hey, women are going to be victimized because they're more vulnerable in Afghanistan. And so we examined that reality, right, and the results of using that rhetoric for that. So I took that and put it in another situation, like in a domestic situation, and we're examining that. That's
No,
the
it works.
conversation.
Hey, you know what? I used to win college debates running K's on topical cases of like how we're defining words and like women, and like how we're even debating the cop, and like I've won debates that way in college because of the idea of like framing means so much. But no, I'm not trying to come at you, Prime,
Yeah, okay.
at all. I'm not trying to come at anybody. It's just it was just a really interesting analysis of how we use our own language, even in these spaces, and how those languages could and be used against us. So it's a very nuanced conversation, but I'm glad we had it because I think we all had something to think about now.
I think Prime is dying. I think he might like disintegrate right now.
I just
Prime and
that,
I are on the same
I
page right now.
yeah.
That's surprising.
I have a question, but it's going even further out there. So like we use like as a mom, I can think of all the times that I've told my kids to go inside or do things, because they're vulnerable. And um, does this language debate change when we're talking about children at
Yeah,
all? I guess, Josie. Sorry, I'm really interested in like the philosophy or behind all of this. So yeah, I'm genuinely curious.
and that's the part I don't understand, like the whole lifeboat thing. Like, okay, yes, it's ridiculous to say like women and men should be treated differently for lifeboats. Because no, they fucking shouldn't, because men and women are both equally able to fucking swim
Mm.
or whatever, right? Like that's insane. But like
Well,
for other
If
situations,
all the men did die except for one, though, we could still
we
have
could,
lots of movies with lots of women. No,
yeah,
no.
but the
I
Titanic
was
isn't the only like
yes.
paragon of society. Like we have
I'm just
other, you
saying
know
we
what I
don't
mean?
need as many men.
Listen, if someone offers me a lifeboat seat, I'm gonna be like, okay.
No. No, but I mean, I can understand like
Go.
that narrative like being questioned. Like I can understand that narrative being questioned. But for me, the thing is like societally, it is accurate to say, for instance, women in Afghanistan are more at risk than men in Afghanistan. That is accurate. They're more vulnerable. Just like children are more vulnerable than adults. They are more vulnerable. That is not, you can't question that. That's not wrong. That's not
But
like
the
some
thing is,
biological fact.
you're
That's a
not
societal
explaining
fact.
Vulnerable to
what
what?
though.
I don't
That you got
have
to do
to. We
the.
can talk about
Yeah,
it.
you do.
No,
You
we can
do
talk about it.
though.
We can talk
Like
about it. I
vulnerable
can
to
say
what?
women.
Because men are more likely to be killed in any sort of combat situation
Yeah.
than women there. But like that, then you don't say men like you always do, but you qualify it by saying that. Like that, I think is the difference. Is like, and I don't know, maybe Josie has a different perspective, but when you just say like women are more vulnerable, my question is like vulnerable to what?
And we can talk about that. We can start talking about what
But I
it
feel like
is
you
that we're talking
need
about.
to say that, otherwise, just leaving that as the blank statement without a qualifier can
Would
be
maybe
confusing and
read to
misleading.
bad public policy, which is what we were
Yeah.
trying to discuss.
What we're questioning
No,
here?
because
Because
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go
sorry, I
ahead,
was just gonna
Alice.
say when we say children are more vulnerable than adults, you guys don't need me to qualify what it is that children are more vulnerable than adults to. There's many situations that children are more vulnerable than adults. And if I say women in Afghanistan are more vulnerable than men in Afghanistan, we can start having a conversation about what that actually means. You know some things offhand. You can start talking about what that actually means. You have some assumptions that you're going to make. You've got some stuff you know about. And when we talk about it, we're talking like we're people, not like we're robots that only understand the base meaning of a word. We know what we are talking about. So you're right. When you're talking with, say, a conservative, and they're like, well, women are more vulnerable and they should start wearing long dresses that cover their ankles because otherwise men are going to rape them. Yeah, we can say, you're fucking insane. But when we're in a group that understands what we're talking about, we can simplify language and we can say women are more vulnerable than men societally. Here's the ways that they are, and here's the ways that we can fix that, and we can change the way that we think about these. We can have a conversation instead of having a 20-minute pedantic conversation about whether men
Eh,
are more, men or women are more vulnerable or not. Like we could have other conversations that we've just wasted 20 minutes of my
No,
time
I don't
on.
think it's a waste. I think language
I
matters.
think it's. I
I
think it's
I
actually. I don't
think
think it's been a
language
waste. I
matters.
find it interesting.
But
Yeah,
but
I find this to
like
be a waste because
I'm
philosophically it
sorry to hear that, Lynn.
matters
but
because like when you frame your arguments, it's important for you to use accurate language.
but
Like if I'm going to talk
we're not
like if I'm
arguing.
going to talk about women in Afghanistan, I'm saying women in Afghanistan are more vulnerable to, you know, not getting educated. Like that to me is a very qualified statement because it brings something directly into the conversation. But if I say women in Afghanistan are just more vulnerable, what does that mean to like American bombs, to like, terrorist Taliban roving groups? Are they paying more money economically? Do they have less money? Do
So
they
let's
do they
talk
not
about all
have
that.
food?
Yeah.
But yeah, but like but I listed a lot of things.
So let's talk about all that.
I
Yeah,
wonder.
but
It's
the
interesting. I wonder. Sorry, really quickly. I wonder. Josie and I both work in politics in some capacity. I wonder if we are like taking more of an issue with like the framing because we know how critical messaging can be and just how much like the omission of words versus like just using generalizations. We know how much that can influence the way people view anything, especially things that
Maddie.
are like
That's the
gender.
point of the conversation, though. That's the
So
point of the
the
It's not
conversation.
though.
When we talked
Prime,
about, when we
step
talked,
back a little though.
well,
So Josie said this multiple times. Josie's called this a debate. And I think that's the problem here, is that this is somehow being framed as a debate rather than a discussion among like-minded people. That's part of the problem here, is we literally have nobody we're debating against. We are discussing a topic that we all generally agree on, and we might have some nuanced takes about each piece of it. So part of the problem here is that, Maddie, you're right. You and Josie are thinking about this from a debate standpoint, and we're not. We're thinking about this from a
But
discussion
we're
standpoint.
debating the words.
But there's no reason
The
to debate the words
language
because we'd like to
matters.
talk.
No, because because even though we're all on the same side, if we were using
We're
problematic
saying the words matter.
language,
no,
Yeah.
like if we're using problematic language or problematic ways of characterizing people, we could be all on the right side, and then or all on the same side, I mean, and we could perpetuate a something that isn't good.
okay, so
Or we
okay,
could just quantify it
okay,
and then talk about it.
so I'm gonna read the question over again. All right, so I'm gonna try it again. Just one more time. Just one more time. After that, I'll just gonna leave it alone and just whatever. Okay, I'm just gonna try it one more time. One more time. Oftentimes, the issue of women's trauma and safety is used to shape public policy. An example of this is the Afghanistan War. An example. One reason why war advocates say that the U.S. should continue its occupation is because of the women that will be protected. But is that a valid excuse? What about when the argument is made by people with a track record of ignoring women's pain in other areas? Is the pain of women just a convenient weapon to get a desired policy outcome? So we're examining how women's pain is used, right? And one of those ways is the rhetoric that was used like as excuse for the war. Well, yeah, an excuse for the war and a reason to continue the occupation, right? And that rhetoric, they'll say that women need to be protected, right, from something. Okay, that's the rhetoric they're using, and so that's what we're examining and those effects that it has, right? So like in all those areas, and so then we're relating that to not just the war, because that's just one example, right? Also other policy, right? Like trans in bathrooms, which is a simple one, right? So that's what we're examining. So when I was saying that women are more vulnerable, it's because that's the rhetoric that is used, right, to then take it to the next step and then initiate some sort of policy. So I don't know. I've said my piece. I don't know what else to say. So, I feel like I don't have the words. My friend Joe would have the words to break this up because she's good with this. But I don't. If I'm not getting this across, then I apologize. And so it's a failing of my
No,
own.
it's fine. And one of the things is the fact that oops, I'm trying to open up the question. Give me a second. There is a word that I want to look, and it's like one of the reasons advocates say U.S. should continue on expectations because of the women that will be protected. And so it's like and that's the thing. It's like women need to be protected. That's where my argument is the fact that there is this ubiquitous thing that women just need to be protected because they're just more vulnerable, and then we're going to work on fixing that vulnerability from the inside out rather than looking at it. That's what I'm saying.
That's
That's
what we're
it
trying to
though.
examine,
We're
though.
all examining it, Prime, and I'm examining it too through the language that we use and the lens that we talk about women generally.
Okay, all right, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Uh,
I love talking about words.
so
Yeah.
any which
It's
way.
like
You guys are
very
philosophers. I fucking hate philosophy.
Oh,
Philosophy
don't hate
is
me.
bullshit.
Aw.
We don't need philosophy. No one needs it. Just to speak
Where
in
did
plain
freedom
English.
come from?
Yeah.
Everything we
Alice
everything
and
that
We
I.
we
talk about the
every
differences in
the
men and
whole
women,
world
but
is
this is
philosophy.
this is why I choose psychological violence every
Uh,
time. Because
um,
this it's an even playing field.
So yeah. Uh, so yeah. Okay. Alice and I once again stand together. Which is it's a fun feeling. It's weird,
Anti-philosophy, the love of knowledge. You just love
I
people who love knowledge. I see. I
I
got it.
I have well I've
That's what philosophy means, the love of knowledge. Sorry.
I have
I hate
have
knowledge.
argued against
I hate it.
my friend Joe is obviously an expert in philosophy, and I've made her mad with that take. But
I make so many people who love philosophy. I love information,
Yeah.
and I do tend to like knowledge. But when we start getting into philosophy and we start defining words for 30 minutes, that's where my brain explodes and I get angry.
Yeah. Same
No,
here.
I
Same
have
here,
a love-hate.
Alice.
I have a love-hate. I love certain things. I love reading about philosophy and learning about it. But oftentimes, I will admit, like I do on other debate panels, like get really frustrated when people are trying to fit everything within a very specific framework or tearing apart that framework, and I'm just like, stop. I'm like, it's not the point.
Okay. So maybe we'll try this again.
We just needed to unpack it, right? We just needed to like deeply unpack it because we're just talking about this topic, right? And we could like it's a foreign policy topic. It's about women and bringing it out to the highest level to look at what we're actually discussing is actually important in my opinion. So
Okay.
I don't do it very often, Prime. You know I don't.
Okay. So
I don't always run a K. It's rare.
Okay.